20 years of love and trust shattered in one dinner conversation. "I've been seeing Cody," Amy confessed, casually mentioning her young colleague. My world collapsed. She claimed it was just for fun, something harmless. But how could she think I'd accept this? Betrayal hit like a sledgehammer. She wanted my permission to keep seeing him, thinking it wouldn't change anything between us. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated betrayal. I must take action. Wait for my story. We were having our usual family dinner at the kitchen table. Just Amy and me, since our kids have grown up and moved out. The meal was a simple veggie stir-fry that I made. I cooked tonight because Amy was late getting home from something at the school where she worked. Amy is usually home before me, but not tonight. We agreed a long time ago that family dinners were important. They give us good quality time, even now when it's just the two of us. I was about to refill my coffee cup when my 51-year-old wife said something I didn't catch. I was distracted, thinking about a problem at work and not really paying attention. What she said didn't make sense, and I figured I'd misunderstood her. She was looking at me, waiting for my response. "What?" I asked, confused. "I don't understand. You're what?" Amy looked at me with a strange expression. "I've been seeing Cody," she said quickly. "You know, the new gym teacher at school, Cody Bakerfield. You've met him?" "I know who Cody is," I replied, trying to make sense of this. Suddenly, I felt a strange, uneasy feeling in my stomach. "So you're seeing him? What does that mean?" Amy took a deep breath. "We've become friends, Cliff. I've been eating lunch with him, and after school I've been meeting him, going out with him sometimes." "Seeing him? Going out with him?" I scoffed. "Amy, what are you saying? You're having an affair?" I waited, thinking she would deny it, but she watched me closely and said, "Yes." "Yes?" I snickered in shock. "Yes what? You're having an affair?" "Yes, Cliff. This can't be true." I started to speak, but no words came out. "Please, just listen, Cliff," she said quickly. "I know this is a shock and that you're thinking the worst, but it's not like that. It's not a bad thing, darling. Really, it's not. I just had to tell you about Cody because I do love and respect you. Always have." "Respect me? Love me?" I gasped. "How can you—" "It's true," she interrupted. "You've always been my number one. Marrying you was the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you and would never give you up. I love you so much. I just couldn't keep seeing him without telling you." My eyes locked onto her face, hoping this conversation was some kind of joke. Amy loves me as much as I love her. She couldn't be having an affair. When she didn't take back her words, I tried to understand what was happening. "I don't know what to say, Amy. I'm completely confused right now." "Please don't feel bad, Cliff," she pleaded. "Yes, I've been seeing Cody, but he's just a friend, and I don't love him. Think about it, honey. Being with him hasn't affected our love and our relationship." I ground my teeth, still shocked by this unexpected news. "How can you say you love me?" "I do love you," she continued earnestly. "We have a great marriage, and I'll always cherish that. But I need other friends, too." "I've never complained about you having friends," I countered. "I know that, and I appreciate it. And that's really all Cody is to me. I love being with you, honey. But when I'm with Cody, it's different. He's much younger and thinks differently. Sometimes he makes me feel young again. I haven't felt like this in—" "Stop!" I cried. I wanted to stay calm, but I lost control. I had to interrupt her. "Please spare me the details. I don't want to hear how you feel with him or what you do behind my back." Amy saw my anger and spoke cautiously. "I'm sorry, honey. I know this hurts right now, but I want to be truthful. Please don't hate me. Yes, I'm seeing Cody. But no one knows. We've been very careful. I'm sure you never suspected anything and no one else does either." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "I guess not. I just wanted you to know we aren't disrespecting you in public." "Just in private," I thought to myself. "Please believe me, Cliff. Cody will never take your place. He's just a fun young guy I hang around with for a while. I do love you, and I never wanted to hurt you. I just couldn't keep this from you. Being with Cody is just a small favor I need you to allow me." I was furious at her casual attitude. He's just a fun guy? A favor? She gives him something I'll never miss? My face burned with anger, and I glared at her. I tried to lash out verbally. You sorry, selfish, conniving—" I stuttered, furious. Before I could stop myself, I blurted out, You damn cheating cold-hearted, how could you? She let me finish my rant and said, I guess I deserve that. I couldn't take it anymore. I jumped up so fast the chair I was sitting in fell over backward. I turned around and stomped out of the room. My coffee was forgotten. Where are you going, Cliff? Amy cried. Don't go, please. I need a minute to process this, I snapped. Give me a few minutes and I'll be back. I charged out the back door as she whimpered, Okay, my love. I stomped onto the deck at the back of our house, red-faced and breathing heavily. An affair. She's cheating. I was furious at her disrespect. I pounded the railing before trying to calm down. I'm usually pretty even-tempered. Rewritten text. But tonight, as my wife talked about her cheating, I was losing control. For years, staying calm and in control of my feelings has been my strength as an accountant. Many times, when talking to a worried client, my calm and patient approach helped them relax and let me solve their money problems. But this was different because it was personal. I couldn't believe my wife. We've been married for over 20 years, and now she says she's having an affair with a younger guy she works with. Yes, I've met him. I thought he was just a friend of hers when we met at a school event some time ago. Amy introduced him as a nice acquaintance, and I foolishly believed her. Now I know better. My mind was filled with troubling thoughts about what she had just told me. I took some deep breaths and tried to calm down. I had to think clearly, and I couldn't do that if I was too emotional. Going back into the kitchen and screaming at her would only turn our talk into a big argument. Yelling at her might make me feel better at first, but it wouldn't help in the long run. Screaming isn't my style anyway. Knowing Amy, yelling would just make her more stubborn. It would give me no information to figure out a way to make her stop. No, I had to use all my skills to handle this. I needed to be like my calm accountant self. I needed details about her affair so I could understand it better. It took another 10 minutes for my heart to stop racing. Once I was breathing normally again, I went back inside the house to face my unfaithful wife. Amy was still at the kitchen table, nervously playing with her coffee cup. She looked up as I entered, worry in her eyes. She waited for me to sit down and began to speak. I raised my hand to stop her. Let's start over, I said calmly. I never expected this tonight. I have to say, Amy, I'm shocked and really upset right now. Oh, Cliff, you don't have to be. I raised my hand again to stop her. Wait. So what's your plan now? Do you expect me to forgive and forget? Is that it, Amy? You've been seeing a guy at work behind my back and I'm supposed to just forgive you? Not exactly, she said, looking uneasy. I knew you'd be upset. I can't blame you for that. I just wanted you to know what was going on. I didn't want to keep you in the dark. Damn it. I cursed before I could stop. So what did that guy say when you told him you were going to tell me? Well, he thought... we both thought it was for the best, Cliff. That's what he said? Not exactly. Despite what you think, Cody's not a bad guy. He feels bad about us sneaking around. We both do. Really? Yes. He doesn't want to ruin our marriage, and neither do I. I was about to tell her to end the affair when she hit me with more shocking words. With a determined look, she sighed. This is so hard, but now that you know what's going on, I want to keep seeing him. Not too often, just now and then, and only after work. I gasped at her boldness and said, Oh, of course. I was speechless, and maybe she was too. We just sat there looking at each other. The room was incredibly tense before my wife sighed and looked at me with pain in her eyes. I'm very sorry, honey. I know this is hard for you, but he's really a nice guy. We connected and have a lot of fun together. I admit I like him, but it won't affect us at all. You've got to be kidding. No, I'm not. Seeing him won't change anything between us. It hasn't yet, and I'll make sure it won't in the future. You probably don't agree, but he's been a good friend to me. Strange as it sounds, he's even been good for our marriage. Really? You're insane. Think logically, Cliff. Have you noticed how happy I've been lately? Remember last year when you said I was grumpy? Well, I was. We were arguing, our marriage was tense, and our love life was boring. We were in a rut when I first started seeing him. What a great story. So he's a marriage counselor too? She ignored my sarcasm. Since we became friends, Cody helped me improve my attitude. I appreciate it, and I know you do too. Yes, we're more than just friends now. I don't need to see him often, just occasionally when you're busy. I know we can work this out, Cliff. I love you. I want to grow old with you and be with you forever. You have to know that. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. So you're not ending the affair. It was a statement. You're asking me to accept that you'll keep seeing him. It will end eventually, she assured me. We get along now, but he's a lot younger than me. We are from different generations and have very different interests. Cody and I could never have the long-term, committed relationship that we do. At some point, our feelings for each other will fade. Just not right now. You're really out of your mind. Please, Cliff, you have to believe me. I promise you nothing between us will change. I'm still the same loving wife I've always been. We'll still have our loving relationship. I love being with you and always will. For the past few months, have you noticed anything different? I hated to admit it, but she was right. I never suspected why our relationship had become so close lately. When Amy and I first started dating, we were very close and intimate a lot. As time went by and our kids grew up with busy lives, things slowed down between us. Even after the kids left for college, we didn't get back to how it used to be. I didn't think it was a big deal. I figured most married couples our age weren't as active, but recently I realized Amy was right. We had found our spark again. I was happy that we were close and intimate several times a week, like when the kids were younger. When she asked if I had noticed any problems with our love life while she was seeing Cody, I honestly hadn't. When I didn't reply, she spoke up. "Of course not," she said with confidence. "Even though I see Cody sometimes, I always make sure to be there for you. We have a great love life for people our age, and I enjoy it as much as you do. I'm always here for you. We love each other and have a stable 20-year marriage. I want to keep it that way." I was shocked. "I love you, but how can I stay married to someone who cheated?" She looked hurt and her face hardened. "I'm not a bad person," she said through clenched teeth. "This is the only time I've cheated. And for the record, I've never been with anyone I didn't have feelings for." "So you have feelings for him?" I exclaimed. "Great. How do I know you're not just waiting to see what happens with him while keeping me as a backup?" "It's not like that, Cliff," she insisted. "You're my husband and I love you. I'll never leave you. But sometimes, I want to be with Cody. Not all the time, just once in a while until I get this out of my system. It won't affect us. It hasn't for the past few months." I sat in silence, listening to her. I couldn't believe she thought everything would stay the same. Knowing she cheated changed everything. My mind was full of thoughts about what she did when she wasn't home. After a while, I started listening again as she tried to justify her actions. "It'll be better for us in the long run, Cliff. I've been so much more relaxed and open lately. You must have noticed how better things have been between us. I haven't said no to you once, and I never plan to. I've allowed things you've wanted to do for years. Since being with Cody, I've felt more expressive. You must have noticed. Don't you think that's true, Cliff?" She was right. I had noticed, and it made me angry. Our intimacy used to be pretty simple. We liked a few different things, but kept it mostly basic. We never watched adult films or involved others. I enjoyed looking into her eyes. I wasn't complaining. Amy is a wonderful woman and a giving partner. We both enjoyed our moments together, but I couldn't deny that she had become much more passionate recently. I thought it was because the kids weren't around or some hormonal change. Maybe I'd gotten better. Now I realized it was her time with that younger guy that was affecting her. It was sad to think she believed the truth would make me happy when it really upset me. I always felt lucky to marry her. When we met, Amy was a beautiful and intelligent woman, 4 years older with 2 young kids. It was her second marriage and my first. We got along great from the beginning. My coworkers used to tease me about having an older wife. But I loved her and her kids, never worried they weren't mine. Her first husband left her soon after their second child was born. When we married, I adopted them and raised them as my own. I'm proud of both of them. Now, after 20 years of marriage, she dropped this bomb on me. "Say something, Cliff," she said, studying my face. "I know you're upset and might feel hurt. I don't want you to be. I want to help. I know you still care for me. Let me help you feel better. You'll always be my number one." She got up and came toward me, moving in a way that usually excited me. "Please, don't worry. I'm here for you. Let me know how I can help you." When she tried to sit on my lap, I pushed her away. She looked hurt, but didn't argue. Suddenly, I got up and ran out. She was caught by surprise and barely had time to say, "Wait!" before I was out the door and in the car. As I drove away, I saw her standing in the doorway with her hands over her face. I had to leave before I did something I'd regret. 10 minutes passed before I realized I was just driving in circles. I thought about the usual bitter spouse move, going to a bar and drinking a lot. There was a small local bar nearby, so I parked, went in, and sat down. I ordered a beer, and the bartender could tell I was upset. "Having troubles?" he asked. He was a heavy guy with a beard. He seemed kind, so I blurted out what had just happened with my wife. "That's not good," he said, "but I've heard this story many times." "What do those other guys do to fix it?" I asked. "Different things. Some go crazy, fight the other guy, and end up in jail. Others leave the cheating wife and move on. What are you thinking of doing?" "I don't know. She just told me tonight. I'm still in shock." "That's normal," he replied. He wiped the bar with a towel and added, "It's none of my business, but if it were me, I'd want to know how it all started." "How will that help?" "You said you're an accountant, right? You need information to solve problems?" "Yeah," I remembered telling him that. "My opinion is that you need to see how she got involved with that guy, how he convinced her to cheat. It might help you feel better to know that it wasn't your fault. It was on her." That idea clicked for me. He was right. I couldn't just run away from this. I had too much time and emotion invested in our marriage. Maybe if I knew how it started, I could figure out what to do next. It would be hard, but I needed to know. "You're right," I told the guy. I left a $20 bill on the bar and walked out the door. The bartender called out, "You left a 20, buddy." "Keep the change," I said. "It was worth it." "Thanks." I drove back home with a plan. That guy didn't even know me, but he gave me good advice. When I walked in the door, Amy was on her cell phone. She looked surprised to see me and whispered into her phone, "I have to go. No, I can't. He's back. Bye." Her tense look made me guess she was talking to her boyfriend. It upset me, but I stayed calm. I had to follow the bartender's advice. I sat back down. My coffee cup was still there. Amy sat across from me, looking serious. "Cliff," she began, but I cut her off. "Wait, let me speak. I need to know how your affair started. Maybe it will help me deal with it." With a serious look, I asked her, "How long, Amy? How long have you been breaking our vows?" Amy sighed and got to the point. "Not too long," she admitted. "We've been friends for a while. It didn't get physical until a few months ago." I stayed quiet, so she kept talking. It started innocently. "You know, Cody and I work at the same school. We met last year when he was hired. Soon after, he started joining me and a few friends at our lunch table. It wasn't unusual for Cody to join us. Not every day, just now and then. I'd see him occasionally at lunch. The other teachers I eat with are all women. Most are married. Cody is one of the few male teachers, young, single, and good-looking. Everyone enjoyed his company, including me. There was no flirting, just friendly talk. It was around that time some teachers, including Heidi and me, discussed joining an exercise class. We've been complaining for years about being out of shape. We thought about joining a gym but never did because it's expensive. "I would have paid for a membership," I said honestly. "I know you would have, sweetheart. But with 2 kids in college and a house payment, we're always tight with money. I didn't want to add a gym membership cost. It was just casual talk among friends, not serious." Cody overheard us in the lunchroom. He suggested using the school gym and offered to be our trainer. Everyone thought it was a great idea. You were busy with a big project then. I had free time after school, usually spent on grading papers and planning lessons. I've been wanting to get in shape, but didn't want to spend money. Since Cody wasn't charging us and the gym was convenient, it worked out. How nice. So how did it turn into something more with Cody? I'm getting to that. I think you remember me telling you about the workout program with Heidi and the girls. Yes, I replied. I did remember her mentioning it. She was right. I was busy then because we were trying to land an important client at work. I got home late many nights, so it was nice that Amy had something to keep her busy until I came back for dinner. She seemed happier back then. She talked about her workouts a few times while we ate. She was really excited about getting fit. I noticed she looked thinner, even though she wasn't heavy before. Amy has always been slim. She never had problems with her weight. Her hips are small, her waist is thin, and she has a trim figure. Her legs, which always looked good, started to look more toned after she began exercising. She has a slight tummy, common for moms like her, but it never bothered me. As I thought about those times, Amy kept talking. At first, it was just us girls working out, and Cody too. We used the school's gym after classes. Cody was our unpaid teacher. He led a fun exercise class for us teachers. It was a good way to relax after a long day with students. I liked it a lot, but after a while the other girls stopped coming. They said they were too busy. After 3 months, it was just Heidi, Cody, and me. 2 weeks later, Heidi quit too. "So it was just you and Cody," I said, trying to stay calm. "Yes. I asked Cody if we should stop since no one else was coming." Cody said he was sad to hear that. He said he enjoyed our class and liked spending time with me. He wanted to keep going. I wasn't sure about it. I told Cody I was worried about people talking. Spending time alone with a single guy like him didn't look good. He laughed and said I was too hard on myself. He said, even with our age difference, he found me attractive and liked being with me. He was happy to be friends with me. I was surprised. I didn't know he felt that way. I thanked him for the nice words, but said it didn't solve my worries. Cody said he understood, but that caring about others' thoughts should not stop me from staying healthy. Then he suggested we work out at the gym in his apartment building. She looked down, feeling a bit sorry. I shouldn't have thought about it, but at that time I wasn't thinking about anything bad. I was flattered by his words. Cody is younger and good-looking. I might have had a small crush on him, even if I didn't want to admit it. Before, I saw him as a fun, younger brother. "That changed, though," I said. "Yes, it did," she replied. "I took his offer. It solved the problem of people talking because no one from school would see us. Plus, I could keep working on my body. The next day, we started working out at his gym. The room was small and not as nice as the school's gym, but it had weights, a mat, some machines, and a treadmill. No one else used it, so we were always alone. Our first few workouts went great." "But then?" I asked. "Yeah. After a few weeks, things changed. Being alone with him was risky. But I loved you, and I thought I could handle it. We never planned to do anything wrong. Cody was fun and friendly. He was also good-looking and in shape. I couldn't help but notice his strong body. By our third session, I had to focus hard on working out and not think about him. He was always helpful and friendly. We enjoyed working out together." "And then?" I asked, growing impatient. She looked at me, hoping for understanding. "We didn't plan for anything to happen. I didn't. We were just friends working out and having lunch sometimes. No one knew about our private workouts. Everyone thought we stopped because the others quit. One day after our workout, I felt pain in my shoulder. Cody saw and offered to massage it. I let him. His strong hands felt great, and soon the pain was gone. I was about to thank him when he suddenly turned me around, held my arms, and kissed me. I was shocked. I liked him but didn't expect that. I didn't stop him when he hugged me and kissed me again deeply. Amy looked down. I hate to admit it, but I kissed him back. We made out right there. No one came in, and soon we were doing more than just kissing. When Cody suggested going to his apartment to shower, I just nodded. "So it started at his apartment?" I asked. "Yes. I was so caught up in the moment, I don't even remember how we got there. It felt like I was walking on air as he guided me out the door and up the stairs to his place. By then, I knew what was coming, but I was too excited to think straight. He was too, because we barely made it inside before we started kissing again. He pulled down my shorts and took them off, then he removed my top and bra, leaving me in just my underwear. We forgot all about the shower he had mentioned. He led me to his bedroom and laid me on the bed. I watched as he took off his clothes and joined me. After a bit of kissing and touching, we had sex. Later, we did shower and had sex again there. Amy looked a bit shaken as she shared the details. Maybe she felt bad about it, I don't know. With a red face, she told me, "When I finally noticed the time, it was late, and I rushed to leave. I knew you'd be late, but I was desperate to get home before you." It was the first time since we got married that I had been with another man. The whole thing felt unreal. I couldn't believe what just happened. I was still dizzy while driving home. I don't know how I managed to avoid an accident. "So, you came home to me after being with him, and I never knew a thing." "I guess that's true. I got home half an hour before you, which gave me time to shower and clean up so you wouldn't know. I dressed quickly and made a quick meal for us. When you got home, I lied and told you I wasn't feeling well and went straight to bed after a short dinner. You were so sweet, asking if there was anything I needed to feel better. I already felt so guilty and weak. Your concern only made me feel worse. But not bad enough to stop seeing him? No, you're right. The next day at school, I didn't even want to see Cody or talk to him. He had to find me and make me go to lunch with him to clear the air. He saw that I was upset and didn't want me to feel bad. He said he liked me a lot and that it was a wonderful experience. If I didn't want to see him again, he would understand, but he'd always treasure the memory. His kind words finally made me feel better. He acted like what we did was no big deal and teased me for worrying so much. The longer we talked, the more I relaxed and thought about what he said. By the end of lunch, I was laughing at his jokes and teasing him back. During lunch, he made it clear he'd like to see me again, but wasn't pushing me. Whether he was just playing me or not, the lack of pressure made me feel even more attracted to him. He was handsome and a good lover, and I had to admit I enjoyed the sex. I began to wonder what it would be like the next time we were together. After that day, we didn't have lunch together as often. Being with him in public too much would have drawn attention. But we kept meeting at his place after school a few days a week. There were no more workouts, just sex. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't stop. Once I decided to cheat, I found myself enjoying being with him even more. I felt a bit nervous about risking our marriage, but I made sure you didn't notice anything different about me. I guess I was successful. She let out a deep breath, as if telling me this story was a big weight off her shoulders. So, where do we go from here? I asked. You just admitted to lying and cheating on me for months. How do you think I feel? My wife has been with some young guy not much older than our kids, and I never knew a thing. Do you expect me to congratulate you for being so sneaky? No, not at all, Cliff, she said, reaching across the table to hold my hand. I tensed up but didn't pull away. No matter how upset I was, I still loved her. Please understand, I'm very ashamed for deceiving you, she said. I hate that I let you down. I know you never found out about Cody because we were very careful. I didn't want you to know about us. I was so ashamed of what I was doing and was always nervous you'd suspect something. The first few times I came home after meeting him, I felt terrible and swore it would never happen again. Cody was very supportive. He never pressured me to continue. He left it up to me. He was happy just to see me occasionally. We both agreed we didn't want to ruin my marriage. I guess that changed. She held my hand tighter and looked at me closely to see how I was feeling. No matter what I did, I know I love you. Cody's a good guy, and he'll be a great catch for someone someday, but he can never take your place. I told him all the time that we'd never be more than friends with benefits, and he agreed with that. He said he liked me a lot but felt the same way. As long as we didn't raise any suspicions at school, I thought we could continue seeing each other and no one would know. Completely avoiding him would have raised questions I didn't want to answer. So we still had lunch sometimes to look normal. But we never let on that we were more than friends. Heidi and other teachers even joined us for lunch sometimes. I know they never suspected anything. I'm sure you were one clever cheater, I said, losing my cool for a moment. Amy gave me a sad look and nodded. Yeah, I was clever, all right. On the surface, I was a faithful wife with a good teaching job, lots of friends, and a nice marriage. Inside, I felt like a liar. The problem was I couldn't escape from my own guilt. I always thought of myself as an honest person and a good wife. My bad behavior went against that image. Deep down, I began to hate myself for deceiving you. Our marriage means a lot to me and has always been the most important part of my life. What I had with Cody was just a short-term thing. I do care about him, but my feelings for him are nothing compared to what I feel for you. I started to feel guilty to the point where I was unhappy with my life. I didn't like the person I was becoming. The solution is simple. Just stop cheating. Yes, that's probably true, but I'm not sure I can do that right now, Amy confessed honestly. I'd like to think that I could just leave Cody and everything between us would go back to normal, Cliff, but honestly, I doubt that. Why? I responded sharply, no longer able to stay calm. You say we're happy together. We've raised 2 amazing kids and gone through the toughest parts of marriage. We both have good jobs and have built a life together. With Martha and Robbie at college, we now have a chance to enjoy our time together like never before. If you love me as you say, coming back to be my loyal wife and leaving that guy should be no problem. She sighed deeply and looked at me with concern. It might have been easy at first, but now I'm not so sure. Of course, I love you like no one else, Cliff. But for the past few months, I've seen a different side of life and learned a lot about myself and my needs. I'm not sure I can just go back to the way I was, even if I want to. I've tried to be the same loving wife to you that I've always been, but being with Cody has opened my eyes to other possibilities. I pulled my hand away from hers in anger. I tried to stay calm, but couldn't. Other possibilities, huh? I spat out. You can't stop seeing him, is that it? You married me and I supported you and our kids all these years. But now some young guy comes along and I'm not good enough anymore. No, don't think that, she said firmly. I've always said you're the best husband and father I could have asked for. But after many years of marriage, I've changed. We both have. We're not the same as when we first got married. It's not a bad thing. It's just natural for two people who have been together for so long. I stared at her, speechless, trying to stay in control. Since I wasn't speaking, Amy continued, I don't want to hurt you, Cliff. I really don't. I know it might not seem like it now, but it's true. We're going to stay together and nothing will change between us. I'll make sure of that. I feel bad about your feelings, but I'm not unhappy with my life right now. I have a wonderful husband and two wonderful kids who love and respect you. I just have a friend that I see sometimes for fun and excitement. A nice young guy who makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. I hope you can understand and love me enough to allow me this freedom. How could you? I whispered, barely audible. If she heard me, she didn't show it and kept talking. It's not a bad thing, Cliff. Just remember, I'm always here for you. You can always count on me. But I'd like things to stay the same for a bit longer. Not forever. Just until I figure things out. Then I'll end it with Cody and be yours alone again. That's what I want for us. Just give me some time. I hope you can appreciate my honesty. I don't want any more secrets. If you let me have this, I promise I'll make it up to you. You'll never want for anything, darling. I'll always be a good wife. No one will know about the little bit of time I spend away from you. Just support me in this one thing, and I'll reward you for the rest of your life. This conversation was getting worse by the minute. At first, I was blindsided by her confession. We started our usual dinner chat, and I was feeling good about our marriage. In just a few minutes, I went from happy husband to deeply hurt. My once loving wife now had a young lover. It took me a few minutes to gather my thoughts. This was a lot to handle. I thought I could convince her to end the affair, but it was clear now that she had no plans to end it. She just needed my cooperation to continue exploring her feelings. This was the highest level of betrayal. I tried to stay calm. Yelling would only make her defensive. I know Amy, and admitting this must have been a huge decision for her. She wasn't the type to just fool around without thinking. I wouldn't have married her if I thought she could do that. I had to believe she had been planning this talk for a while, and she's probably talked about it with her lover. He might have suggested it to her to ease her worries and make her more available to him. He's one smooth operator. If I acted like the jealous, hurt husband, it would only push her closer to him. I had to stay calm and not lose my mind. It all sounds perfect for you, Amy, I said. You get to have fun with a young guy, and I'm supposed to put up with it. Honestly, I wish I could trade places with him. That way, I'd get you and any other women who wanted me. She frowned. It's not like that at all. You think you're the only one he's seeing? Don't be naive. I don't know. He says he's only with me. If he does see others, he always uses protection, she replied. But it doesn't matter. Should I get an STD test? Should you? I thought this would surprise her, but my smart wife was always ahead of me. Instead of looking shocked or angry, Amy smiled smugly. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. You can get one if you want, she said, slipping a few papers from the envelope onto the table. But you don't need to. I'm not dumb, you know, she said, sounding annoyed. Read this. These are our test results. We knew you'd worry if you found out about us, so I went to a clinic with Cody last month. We've both been tested for diseases, and as you can see, we're both clean. I looked over the papers quickly. The first couple of times we were together, we didn't use protection, she continued, but after that, we always used condoms. I know he's not seeing anyone else seriously, but to be safe, we use condoms every time. I hope you see I'm being careful. I pushed the papers back. So you plan to stay married to me and just see him sometimes? Yes, just like we have been. You've never noticed anything before, and you won't now. I'll make sure of that. But you've been lying to me, haven't you? Yes, I have. I didn't want to hurt you. You've been lying for months. You've lied to me, our kids, our friends. How can I trust you again? How do I know you won't leave me for Cody or some other guy in the future? Amy looked frustrated because she knew I was right. She hesitated, her eyes wet with tears. I would never do that. You have some nerve, I said bitterly. Acting all high and mighty, you even got a blood test with him. Why shouldn't I just leave you? I don't want a cheating wife. I should just divorce you. If I thought my harsh words would hurt her, I was wrong. Amy's face softened, and she looked at me kindly, but her words had an edge to them. I know this is hard, she said, but a divorce? That wouldn't be good for you, Cliff. Why not? At least I'd have my pride. Her pitying look made me even angrier. A divorce would hurt both of us badly. At least I wouldn't have to deal with your affair anymore. Maybe, but I don't think we'd be happy divorced. Neither of us would. She locked eyes with me. We live in a no-fault state. I'd get half of everything. The house, the savings, our retirement fund. You'd have to help pay for Martha and Robbie's college because you adopted them. There would also be alimony since my teacher's salary is so low. You'd have to support me reasonably. It would be a lot of money. I guess she and her boyfriend had thought this through. So you'd take everything in the divorce, I said. I don't want to do that, she said. I want to live with you and love you like always. But if we divorced, you'd owe me a lot. I'd still see Cody, which you wouldn't like. It's better if we stay married. We'll keep our life and no one will know. I'll always make sure you're my number one. But I was happy before you told me all this, I said bitterly. Now I feel like a fool. It's not like that, Cliff. As I started to walk away, she called out, Wait, don't go. We need to talk more. Please. There's nothing to talk about, Amy. You've given me your terms. Now I have to decide. There's nothing to worry about, she cried. Nothing will change between us. I love you for letting me do this. I'll do anything to make you happy. Then end your affair right now. She sighed, looking down. I can't do that yet. It won't be for long, though. Then there's nothing more to say. This conversation is over. I've heard enough. You told me how you feel, and nothing I say will change your mind. At the same time, I'll never believe anything you say again. It's pointless talking to a liar and a cheat. I felt like I couldn't breathe and needed to leave to clear my mind. Behind me, I heard her say, Wait, Cliff, please don't hate me. I love you so much. I went into the den and turned on the TV. I didn't care what was on. I was still in a fog from the hard talk we had. I thought about going to a hotel and staying there without telling her. I was so angry I wanted to make her feel the way she made me feel, but I knew leaving home and getting drunk wasn't my way. I guess I'm too sensible or dull to do anything crazy. I was numb and tired. It felt like a bad dream. How could she do this to me? Did she really think I could share her with some smooth-talking guy from her school? I never thought I was that bad in bed. I knew I wasn't ugly, and Amy never complained. In fact, she told me many times that she loved our time in bed. Now that she's been with someone else, was she so unhappy with me that she needed to be with another guy? Sadly, I guess the answer is yes. I watched TV for another hour or so. There was a game on, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. I heard my wife leave the kitchen at some point. The sliding glass doors opened and closed when she went out onto the back deck. I guess she was calling someone and needed privacy, probably her new boyfriend, to let him know how our conversation went. She came in quite a while later and entered the den. I was on the recliner, so she couldn't sit next to me. She did move close and watched me for a while. Are you all right, Cliff? She asked sweetly. I know this was a lot to take in, honey, and I want to help you. I glanced over and saw her give me a strange smile. Do you want to talk some more? Or should we go to bed? She asked. You know I'll do anything to make you feel better. I really want to. I was disgusted. Offering me comfort was her way of fixing things? I ignored her offer and went upstairs to bed. I was furious with my wife and thought about sleeping in the guest room. But I decided she was the one at fault, so why should I leave my room? I undressed quickly and jumped into bed. A few minutes later, Amy entered the room. She saw I was already under the covers, so she went to our private bathroom and changed into a nightgown she knew I liked. She turned off the light, slid under the covers without a word, and began moving toward me. I now knew she was a cheater and had no intention of letting her touch me. I turned on my side away from her, hoping she'd get the message. Instead, she moved closer, trying to spoon me and touch me. I pushed her hand away. "Do you want to fool around, honey?" she whispered softly. "I know you're upset with me right now, but I'm serious about helping you and giving you everything you want. I'm still your loving wife. Would you make love to me? I'd really appreciate it." I bit my lip to keep control. Unfortunately, I couldn't help reacting to her warm skin and those soft boobs touching my back. I could feel her nipples and smell her scent. For years, she was my only lover. She always turned me on. Tonight was no different. "Please, Cliff. I'll make it good, honey." Without moving, I pulled her hand off me and said, "Not tonight." "But honey, I know you're upset. I just wanted to—" I flipped over and glared at her. She was startled by my angry look and moved back from me. Even in the dark, I knew she could sense my anger. "Of course I'm upset, damn it," I spat out. "I just found out I've been a fool for months. If you need this so bad, go call Cody. I'm sure your young guy can take care of what you need." Amy was shocked. I don't think she expected me to turn her down like this. I stared at her for a few moments, then rolled over to face the wall. Amy didn't say anything, and she didn't bother me anymore. I had a hard time falling asleep, and I know she did too. The next morning I woke up before the alarm. I barely slept and was still very upset from our talk last night. Amy was in bed, but she wasn't sleeping. I took a quick shower, and when I came out, she was already gone from the bedroom. Amy had to be at the school an hour before I did. I usually got up early. Even though I didn't have to go in early, I was often up before her and sometimes even made breakfast. Not anymore. That was before I knew she was seeing that guy. I got dressed and cleaned up quickly. When I left the room, I saw her downstairs making breakfast for a change. "Good morning, Cliff," she called out sweetly. "There's bacon and eggs for you and some toast. Do you want some coffee, dear?" I ignored her greeting and her offers. I didn't even look her way and just walked out of the house. "Cliff, wait, please," I heard her call out as I slammed the door, got in my car, and drove off down the street. I admit I shed some tears on the way to work. I just couldn't understand how she could disrespect me and our marriage like this. I loved her so much. For 20 years, she was the main focus of my life, my lover and best friend. We had so many plans now that the kids were grown and out of the house. This was supposed to be our time to enjoy together. Now everything was messed up. At work, I tried to forget about my problems, but I kept thinking about her and that young guy and couldn't focus. Throughout the day, I got several calls from Amy. I didn't answer, and her messages went to voicemail. I didn't bother listening to them and just deleted them. She sent me a few cute texts. I glanced at them and deleted them too. With her texts and calls, I couldn't get her out of my mind. I made several simple mistakes at work and finally decided to take the afternoon off. I called up a lawyer for a consultation. He was an older man and took me in right away. It seemed what Amy told me about divorce was true. I would be in a bad place emotionally and financially, while she'd come out well with a young boyfriend to be with. I'd be financially strained supporting her, and since I never cheated, I didn't have anyone to comfort me. I'd end up rather poor and alone, maybe in a small one-bedroom apartment. Not a pretty picture. If I stayed with her, it wasn't much better. Sure, I'd get attention. She made sure to emphasize that. But it would be empty and feel like pity. It was clear this younger guy made her feel special in a way I never could. At 47, there was no way I could compete in bed with a good-looking, fit 30-year-old, or however old he is. Also, if I stayed in the marriage and ignored her cheating, the court would think I was okay with it. They'd assume I accepted her affair, and I could never claim infidelity in a divorce case. Even more daunting was trying to fight fire with fire. Basically, remain married and have my own affair. In a relationship contest with my wife, I'd lose every time. There are plenty of guys who want to be with her, even young guys. Cody was proof of that. At 51, Amy is still fairly attractive with short, dark hair, a slim body, and a pleasant personality. I'm an average-looking older guy with a slightly receding hairline and carrying a little extra weight. I have a good job, and I'm okay looking for a 47-year-old. But I don't know how many women want an older, middle-class, married boyfriend. Not many, I guess. The difference between our chances at dating was depressing. She was still attractive, and I was not. After a frustrating day at the office, I went to a bar for dinner. I stayed away as late as I could. Unfortunately, I never got into the bar scene, and it was boring being by myself. I wanted to be home with my wife, sipping a beer and relaxing by the TV. Not drowning my sorrows alone in a bar, drinking alcohol surrounded by a bunch of lonely guys like me. When I got home, Amy was already in bed. It wasn't that late, but I guess she just gave up on me coming home. Not that I cared. The next day was Saturday, which had always been our date night. Friday night was for relaxing after a long week and staying in. Saturday was for doing chores, and in the evening, enjoying a nice date with my wife. Unlike every other Saturday night since we married, I had no desire to be out with her. I woke up early after another bad night's sleep. I left the house at dawn and went to Denny's for breakfast. I drove around and did some window shopping, basically wasting as much time as I could. Then I went back home, wondering if my unfaithful wife was there or out with that young guy at his apartment. It turned out she was home. She must have heard my car pull up because when I got to the door, she opened it and welcomed me with a smile. When she tried to kiss me, I turned my head so she hit my cheek. She looked surprised when I pulled away from her hug and walked past her. "Welcome home, Cliff. I love you." "Yeah, right," I muttered, walking away. I went into the den and sat down at my desk that I use for working at home sometimes. She followed me. "I'll have lunch ready in a few minutes, Cliff. Would you like a beer while you wait?" "No." I made myself look busy as I started checking something on the computer. I didn't hear her leave and knew she was still standing behind me. "I know you're upset, Cliff, and I'm really sorry." I didn't respond. "I knew you'd be angry with me, but I had to tell you. I didn't want any secrets between us anymore. I guess I didn't explain it very well. We need to talk more after lunch. I really do love you, honey." I didn't turn around. Her words made me so angry. Talk about what? Her plan to cheat on me with that jerk? I couldn't even think about it, so anything I said would hurt her. After a moment, she walked away, mumbling to herself. As she finished making lunch, I thought about my situation. I wanted to leave her and get a divorce, but I knew that would mess things up for me and give her an advantage. I needed a plan to keep my dignity and show her things were not okay. When she called me for lunch instead of staying mad, I decided to do something unexpected. "I'll be right there," I called back. It took a moment to calm down and push my anger away. I walked into the kitchen with a blank look. Amy had set the table and served the food. She probably thought I'd be upset, so I surprised her. "This looks good," I said as I sat down. "You made tuna casserole. It looks delicious." We both knew it was one of my favorites. She had clearly taken time to make it to please me. "It's all for you, Cliff. I hope you like it." "It looks great. Can we say grace before we eat?" Amy's smile faded a bit. We hadn't prayed in years. "Of course. I mean, if you want." I closed my eyes and said a short prayer, thanking God for the food, our home, and for giving us each other. When I opened my eyes, Amy looked a bit shaken. I finished with a heartfelt "Amen," and then said, "Let's eat." For the next 20 minutes, I ate the tasty food. I forced myself to be nice and kept the talk light and friendly. There were a few awkward moments when she doubted my attitude. But soon, Amy started to open up and join in the conversation. By the end of the meal, she seemed to believe I was putting our problem aside, at least for now. We talked about the weather, plans for the weekend, and any other simple topics I could think of. She must have been surprised that I was getting along with her. After days of silence, this must have been a relief. I was still angry, of course, but I hid it well. After lunch, I helped her clean up. She seemed happy. She asked if I wanted to go out tonight, as we usually did. I told her no. I just wanted a quiet night at home, and she seemed fine with that. While we cleaned up, Amy accidentally bumped into me a few times. When I didn't complain, she began to touch my arm. When she tried to hug me, I let her. But I didn't show affection back. It was just a normal lunch, like with any roommate. After lunch, Amy found me working in the yard. She called me in for a break, but I said I wanted to finish my work. She seemed disappointed, but didn't argue. Later, she came outside and said she was going out for a while to shop and run errands. She said she wouldn't be long. In the past, I would have wished her a safe trip and gone back to work. Not now. For the first time, I didn't believe her. I had an idea. "Give me a few minutes and I'll go with you," I suggested, trying to act casual. "We can go together. I need to get some things too." "Oh," she said, looking surprised. "Are you sure? I won't be long, just a quick trip." "No, it's no trouble. I'll be ready in 10 minutes." I started up the stairs and noticed her moving into the kitchen. I waited as she made a call, whispering into her phone. "I can't. Not now," I heard her say. "No, he wants to come with me. You're probably right." "I can't. I haven't asked him yet. He's acting weird since I told him." "I know. Don't say that. Maybe tomorrow, okay?" Then she giggled. I knew she was talking to him. I guess I ruined their plans for the day. Tough luck. After we got home from shopping, Amy seemed thoughtful. I could see she was distracted but not upset. I just let her dream about her boyfriend without showing my anger. When we put away the groceries, Amy asked, "You want to go out tonight, Cliff? There's a nightclub some of the girls told me about. They say it's nice, with good food and a live band. You feel like taking me dancing?" She smiled in a way that used to melt my heart. Tonight, I just shook my head. "No." She looked a bit shocked at my blunt answer. "Why not, honey?" she asked with a pout. "You know I love dancing, and we haven't gone out in a while. Last time we went out, you said I couldn't dance. Remember? That was a while ago, and I was just kidding. If you were kidding, why did you dance with all those other guys and leave me sitting alone?" "That's, I don't remember that," she mumbled. "And 2 weeks ago you went out with your friends," I reminded her. "You said it was a girls' night, but now I know you were with Cody. Was that just an excuse to see him?" Amy's smile disappeared. "No, Cliff, that's not true," she stammered. I didn't. It was... Come on, Amy. You said no more secrets, right?" I laughed. She was clearly lying, and we both knew it. "We know you've been sneaking around for months, hiding your affair from your clueless old husband. That guilty look on your face says it all. He was your date that night, wasn't he? I bet he took you dancing, right?" Amy just stared at me. She looked pale and unsure, struggling to respond. "So why would you want to go out with someone like me who can't even dance when you could be with him? You'd just compare me to him all night. Since he's young and charming, your boring old husband would lose out in comparison." "Oh, honey, that's not... No, Cliff, I wouldn't do that." "Sure you would. You've been doing it for months." I could almost see her thoughts racing. I had just made a wild guess, but it seemed I was right. Should she continue lying or come clean? She couldn't decide and just sighed in frustration. She turned and went upstairs to the bedroom. I went into the den to keep away from her for a while. Later, when I came out, I found her in the kitchen. I went in to get a beer, then moved to the living room and turned on the TV. She showed up a few minutes later with a glass of wine. "Mind if I join you?" Amy asked pleasantly. I noticed she had changed clothes. She was now wearing a thin tank top and tight, short shorts. I could smell her spicy perfume. "Suit yourself." I was sitting on the sofa and moved aside to give her space. She sat right next to me. During the TV show, Amy grew more affectionate. She must have finally noticed that while I was polite, I wasn't being romantic. When I didn't make a move to touch her, she leaned closer, until her leg pressed against mine. I knew the wine had her a bit lightheaded. She wasn't drunk. When she moved her head close to my neck, I said, "I need to use the bathroom, Amy." I gently moved her back, got up, and walked away. As I left, I saw her look at me strangely because I almost never ignored her advances. I finished up in the bathroom, but instead of going back to the living room, I went into the kitchen. "Want more wine, Amy?" "No more. Not now." "Okay." "Are you coming back?" she asked. "This show is getting good. Not right now." I stayed in the kitchen on purpose. When I thought enough time had passed, I left with a beer and went straight into the den, shutting the door behind me. As expected, Amy opened the door a few minutes later. "What are you doing?" she asked with a smile. "Just catching up on some stuff. You don't want to watch the show?" "Better not." "Oh, okay." She stood there as I focused on the computer. When I didn't look at her, I could sense her frustration. After such a nice dinner, I'm sure she hoped we'd connect. A minute later, I felt her hands on my shoulders. "What are you looking at now?" she asked, glancing at the screen. I had pulled up some work documents. I knew she wouldn't understand what it was. "I got busy on Friday and didn't finish this," I told her. "I didn't think you'd mind if I missed the show." "Oh, of course not." I shivered when she began rubbing my neck. She knew I liked it. and she made the massage as nice as she could. Her hands moved around my neck, gently scratching my head. I could smell the alcohol on her breath when she kissed my head. I just ignored her. It took 10 more minutes for her to get the hint that I wasn't interested. Finally, she walked away and went back to the living room. "Could you shut the door, please?" "Okay," she said, pulling it closed behind her. I breathed a sigh of relief. After being my partner for so long, Amy could still tempt me a lot. Everything she was doing was meant to draw me in, and it was working, but I was determined to stay distant. I had no intention of sharing her with another guy. It took me 3 hours to finish my work. When I went upstairs to bed, I found her asleep. She was wearing a very revealing nightie with matching panties. I guess she wanted to seduce me. In that outfit, she definitely would have tempted me. She planned to surprise me, but fell asleep from the wine. Sunday morning, I got up before Amy. I got dressed, fixed a nice breakfast, and took it to her in bed. She was surprised. "What brought this on, Cliff?" she asked, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. "I just wanted to give you something to eat before we go to church." Amy's smile disappeared. "Church? We haven't gone to church in years." "I know, but it would be nice to start going again. We haven't been as close these last few months. I think going to church would help us reconnect." "I don't want to. Sorry. I already told your parents we were going." "What?" she cried. "My parents! Why'd you do that?" "Because I thought you'd want to go," I said calmly. "But if you don't want to go, just stay home. I'll have to explain that you're too tired for church and changed your mind." Amy's blue eyes locked onto mine. I knew telling her about her parents would force her to go. She certainly didn't want to seem like she was disrespecting the church. Disrespecting her husband was one thing, but not God. After church, Amy was fuming. She found out my threat about telling her parents was a bluff. To make it worse, the pastor's sermon focused on the sin of adultery, which hit the mark. She smiled as we left the church, shaking hands with the pastor and his wife, but once we got outside, she let me have it. "You liar! You really got me this time. I know you never told my parents about church." I didn't deny it. It was true, but I did make her think twice about cheating, which was my goal. She tried to start an argument with me the rest of the day, maybe to have an excuse to leave the house. I didn't react. I kept smiling, saying church was good for her, while she yelled back that I was a liar trying to control her. Our dinner after church was quiet. I tried to talk to her, but she didn't want to chat. That was fine by me. Later, she told me she was going out for a while. No explanation. She just left. While she was getting ready, I took her cell phone from her purse. I looked through her messages and saw she had been texting her sister, who knew nothing about church. She also texted her boyfriend to meet him that evening. I was furious at the things he was saying to her, complimenting her and talking about their time together. She replied and arranged to meet him at a local restaurant. Using her phone, I texted him that she would be late, around 10 o'clock, knowing he'd have work early the next day and it would be inconvenient for him. I removed the battery from her phone, put tape over the contacts, and put it back in. Then I went to her car and disconnected one of the battery wires. Now she had no phone and no car. Since we didn't have a home phone, only our cell phones, there was no way for her to cancel her date. I just sat in the living room watching TV, waiting for things to get interesting. Amy came downstairs dressed casually but nicely. Not revealing, but the tight sweater and jeans fit her well. She still looked mad as she walked past me to her car. "I'll be back later," she said abruptly. "Where are you going, dear?" "Nowhere you'd care about," she snapped. "Okay, have fun." Less than 5 minutes later, she was back. "Cliff, my car won't start," she said, clearly upset. "Can you check it?" "What happened?" "How should I know? It just won't start. I turned the key, and nothing." "Let's take a look." As I stood over the engine with the hood up, Amy walked away trying to use her cell phone. I tinkered a bit as she started cursing. "What the hell? My phone's not working either." "Really?" I said, feigning surprise. "Is the battery charged?" "I thought so. Damn it, now what?" "Want to use mine?" I offered, holding out my phone. I knew she needed to call her boyfriend, but didn't want to use my phone because I'd see who she called. She looked around, unsure what to do. "No, that's okay. I'll call later." "Well, I don't know what's wrong with your car," I said with a shrug. "I guess we'll have to get it towed tomorrow, but I can drive you where you need to go now if you want." I gestured to my car, and she stared at me for a moment. Her plans were falling apart. I guess I don't have to go. You don't want to go now? No, I'll just wait till tomorrow. You'll need me to drive you to work then, right? With a defeated look, Amy sighed. Yeah, I guess so. I got up in the night and found her purse. I removed the tape from her cell phone so she couldn't blame me for messing with it. Monday morning, I drove her to school. Amy had no choice but to accept. She was quiet the whole way and didn't look happy. I knew she and her boyfriend sometimes had lunch together, but I doubted they did more with so many kids around. According to her, they met after school at his apartment. I got several calls from Amy's school. She probably wanted to tell me she'd get a ride home, likely from her boyfriend. I ignored them. I left work early and got to Amy's school before her last class ended. I waited for the kids to leave. When I showed up in her classroom, she was surprised, and not in a good way. Hey, honey, ready to go home? I asked cheerfully. She glared at me. I called you all day, Cliff. Why didn't you call back? Sorry, I was busy. I wanted to tell you I already arranged a ride home. Oh, really? Well, I'm here now, so let's go. At that moment, a tall, athletic guy with dark hair walked into the room. He moved toward my wife like he expected her to greet him warmly. I knew who he was right away. It was her boyfriend, Cody. I had seen him before, but hadn't paid much attention. Up close, he looked even younger, more like a college kid than a teacher. He wore sneakers, shorts, and a t-shirt that showed off his muscles. He was an attractive guy, and I could see why Amy liked him. Amy's eyes widened when he arrived. Cody looked confused. Oh, Cody. She stammered. I was just telling, Cliff that she already has a ride home. I finished for her. I stayed calm because I expected he might be there. He looked surprised to see me. When he saw me, he smiled in an annoying way and glanced at my wife. Oh, hello, he said, extending his hand. I'm Cody Bakerfield. I ignored his hand and replied coolly, Yeah, I know who you are. Amy, trying to ease the tension, chirped, Cody, this is Cliff, my husband. I think you met him once. The young man's confused expression softened as he remembered me. Oh, that's right. Yes, Cliff Wilson, I remember you. Nice to see you again. I'm sure it is, I said sarcastically. I remember we met at parents' night a few months ago. Amy has said a lot about you. She thinks very highly of you. Not highly enough, I guess, I replied with a sharp edge. I glanced warily at my wife. She looked like she was holding her breath. Amy, let's get out of here, I said, wrinkling my nose as if something smelled bad. She began to gather her things as Cody turned to me. Excuse me for a minute, Mr. Wilson. Can I call you Cliff? I scowled and ignored his question. What do you want? Just a minute of your time, Cliff. I know there's some tension between us, which is understandable, but it doesn't have to be this way. I know Amy has told you about our friendship. So I just wanted to make it clear that I have no hard feelings towards you, and I respect the strong relationship you have with your wife. Is that why you're involved with her? I asked. Across the room, I heard my wife inhale sharply with concern. Cody nodded sympathetically. Yes, it's true. Amy and I are good friends, and we have gotten very close. But that doesn't mean we don't respect you and your role in her life. Neither of us wants to hurt your marriage or your family. We're just friends, and no more than that. She's always said she loves only you. This guy was slick, I thought. Cody continued with a smile. I hope you won't resent my friendship with Amy. She has been a wonderful influence on everyone, including me. We got caught up in our relationship, and we should have talked to you first. That was my fault. She behaved properly, and I took things further than I should have. So you admit you led her on? In a way, yes. She's a wonderful woman, and I admit I got too interested. But believe me, I never meant to harm you. I appreciate you letting her teach here so she can be a role model. Her friendship means a lot to me, and I'll always value it. That was some serious nonsense. I didn't know what to say. I glanced away from his face to my wife and saw her watching him closely. Her eyes were sparkling like she was impressed with him. So if I asked you to stop seeing her, what would you say? He shrugged and said, I understand your concerns. I'd feel the same way. But ending our friendship is up to her. Amy is very intelligent and passionate. If she doesn't want to see me again, I'll respect that. If she does, It would be hard to say no. I found myself unable to fully hate this guy. I appreciated his honesty but still disliked him. As reasonable as he sounded, the bottom line was that unless I physically stopped him, he was going to keep seeing my wife whether I liked it or not. I looked away and saw Amy and Cody exchanging glances. I hated the look on her face. She was as old as his mother, but with him she seemed like a teen with a crush. No matter how Amy used to feel about me, it was clear I wasn't in the same league as her new interest. I felt deflated by his smooth words. I could have taken a swing at him, maybe even landed a few punches. But he was in great shape and could probably beat me easily. In a fight, he would make me look even more foolish. Feeling defeated, I pushed past him and headed out the door without looking back. I heard my wife and Cody exchange a few hushed words. Then she hurried after me. "Cliff! Wait up, honey!" she called out from behind. I heard her high heels clicking on the hard floor as I walked quickly to my car. I didn't want to be around her now. The whole conversation left me feeling weak. It was clear how much Amy thought of him. I knew I couldn't compete with a young, smooth guy like him. I hated him for getting close to my wife, although at the moment I was probably more upset with her than with him. Amy was quiet on the ride home. She said a few kind words to me, but mostly she just stared out the window, probably thinking about the strange scene in her classroom. I don't know what she thought about Cody now, probably more impressed with him than ever. I know my status took a big hit. I came off as weak and unsure, while he confidently talked about his respect for me and how much he admired my wife. We got home, and as I walked to my bedroom, I felt much older than my age. Amy could see I was down, and she tried to cheer me up, but it was no use. She even offered to give me a back rub to help me sleep. I wasn't interested in having her touch me. She gave me a sad smile as she got into bed. I had a strong feeling our marriage was over. Whether she wanted to keep me or not, I knew who she really wanted to be with. There was nothing she could say to ease the deep pain in my heart. The next night, I moved my clothes to the guest room. Amy was very upset and begged me to stay. She argued that I was her husband and should be next to her. She even offered to do whatever I wanted if I stayed. I ignored her, and soon I was sleeping in the small bed in the guest room. Amy went to bed that night in tears. The week went by quickly. Amy and I woke up, went to work, came home, ate dinner, and went to bed. I hoped she might reconsider her affair now that I had moved out of our bedroom, but she just denied any reason for me to leave. She said I was acting childish and could move back any time I wanted. I stayed firm, and after that night, we didn't share a bed anymore. Amy always got home before me, which wasn't a surprise because I usually worked later. She always had dinner ready, and we ate in silence. We had no plans for the weekend, so we spent Friday and Saturday nights watching TV. After TV, we went to our separate rooms. I never knew if she was still seeing Cody. She didn't tell me either way, but I suspected she was. Even if I got home on time, she had time to meet him after school. Their school wasn't far from his place, so they could easily meet up. Amy tried to keep her affair secret, but I wasn't naive. I saw her happy face after spending time with Cody. He was likely getting more attention from her than I ever did. I had some free time the next week and went to see my lawyer. I told him we were sleeping apart now, and he said that was probably best. He asked if I wanted to divorce her, but I said not yet. I didn't mention that I was trying to move some money around, perhaps to hide it from Amy's lawyer. No matter what, she'd have Cody to cheer her up. He then asked if I wanted a separation agreement. It wouldn't lead to divorce, but would separate our finances and show I didn't accept Amy's cheating. I liked that idea and told him to go ahead. While waiting for the document, I tried to keep home life normal. Amy and I spent evenings together, eating, cleaning up, and sometimes watching a movie. On weekends, I cut the grass, weeded the garden, washed the cars, and kept busy to avoid thinking about our broken marriage. She cleaned the house and did her chores too. Amy knew I was sad. She stayed friendly and let me know she wanted to restart our love life. In the evening, she would wear something nice and ask if I needed her help, giving me hopeful looks. We tried to keep our talks light and casual. I never knew when she saw Cody, and she tried not to make me suspect anything to avoid upsetting me. I was grateful for that. Some cheating wives flaunt their lovers to hurt their husbands, but Amy never did that to me. Knowing she was still having an affair weighed on my mind. Sometimes I'd see her in revealing clothes, and it made me think of Cody enjoying her body. She was in her 50s and looked her age, but I still found her body attractive. I did try to make love with her a few times. Amy was loving and did everything to get me interested. I'd get excited during foreplay, but the moment she undressed and got into bed, I'd think of her with Cody and lose my desire. Amy kept saying she missed our love life and wanted to go back to how things were. She tried everything to make me interested. After a while, she suggested I see a doctor or try Viagra. Talking about my problem made me feel worse. I knew she was getting all the love she wanted from her young lover. Despite trying to hide it, I noticed she was happier on some days. I could almost see the satisfied look on her face. After a couple more weeks, I gave up trying to have sex with her. I brought up the separation agreement to her. Amy was surprised and said she wouldn't sign it. She said she didn't want to be separated from me. When I told the lawyer, he said the only way out was to divorce her. But if I didn't want to, he suggested signing another document that wouldn't mean much in court. It would at least show that I didn't approve of her cheating and wanted her to stop, but she refused. He said it might help a bit if we ended up divorcing. I signed it even though it wasn't much. A few months after the argument in Amy's classroom, I came home feeling tired and sad. I saw Amy's car in the driveway. Next to it was another car I didn't know. For a moment, it felt like one of those stories where a husband comes home to find his wife with another man. Was today the day I would find Amy with someone else? I went inside and found Amy and another woman on the deck. They were both lying on our lounge chairs in swimsuits. The sun was setting, so they weren't tanning. They were just relaxing in the shade, sipping wine. Amy heard me come in and got up to meet me. Her friend stayed outside. "Hey, Cliff," she said. "I'm glad you're home." She tried to kiss me, but I turned my cheek like I always did. She didn't seem surprised anymore. "Poor thing," she said, holding me. "Rough day?" "Not really." "That's good," she said. "Why don't you change into something more comfy and come out back to meet my friend Susan?" "Are you sure? I'm not great company right now. I can go eat dinner out if you want." "No way. Just change and come down," she laughed. "I'll make us something soon. Susan is staying for dinner tonight." I wasn't happy about that. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I hoped Susan wasn't a teacher from Amy's school who knew about her cheating. The thought was really depressing, but I did what she said. I came out to the deck 20 minutes later wearing shorts and a polo shirt and holding a beer. "Cliff, this is Susan," Amy said. "I've known her for a short time, but she's a good friend and wanted to meet you." "Hello, Cliff," Susan said, standing up to shake my hand. "Nice to meet you, Susan." Susan was lively, with short blonde hair and a curvy body. She was a bit overweight, but had a pretty face. Her one-piece suit was tight around her full curves. Amy wore a modest two-piece that showed her soft, pale middle. I guessed Susan was in her mid to late 40s. Both were attractive women whom many guys would admire. After about an hour of chatting, Amy called a Chinese restaurant for takeout. When the food came, we went inside to eat in the kitchen. Both women drank wine and got giggly as the evening went on. It was Friday night, so they didn't have school the next day. Despite my worries, I started to enjoy their company. Susan was bubbly and cheerful and entertained us with stories of her travels. Amy and she got along well. I could see why they were friends. It was getting late and I was tired. The women were still sipping wine and were quite tipsy. I had only 3 beers, so I was far from drunk. They were laughing at another of Susan's funny stories. When I told them I was going to bed, they looked surprised. "Bedtime already?" Susan joked. "It's not even 11. "He gets tired early now," Amy laughed. "I think he's getting old." They both laughed, but I didn't join in. After living without much excitement for so long, Amy's joke annoyed me a bit. She must have noticed because she patted my hand. "Come on, Cliff." "Oh, no. Did we hurt his feelings?" Susan giggled. "No more old man jokes, Amy." "I don't know why," Amy said with a smile. "I'm older than he is, and I don't care." "You are? I never would have guessed." "Yes, I married someone younger. He's a bit inexperienced, but I taught him well." "Well, we could help with that," Susan chuckled. "Between the two of us, we've got plenty of experience, right?" "I guess we do." I was fed up. It felt like they were making fun of me, and I didn't appreciate it. I didn't want to joke about how experienced Amy was now, probably thanks to Cody. I was sick of it. "Good night, you two," I said roughly as I got up and left. That night, I had a vivid dream about a woman being very close to me. It was so real it woke me up. My mind was foggy, and as I woke, I realized the feeling hadn't stopped. I looked down and saw a blonde woman with her head in my lap. She was doing something very intimate. Next to me, Amy was lying down, gently touching me. I was shocked. I jumped up and pushed the woman away. Feeling disoriented, I stood there trying to gather my thoughts. I saw Amy and Susan lying naked on the bed, watching me with smiles. "What are you doing?" I shouted in shock. "We're just trying to make you feel good," Amy said softly. "I thought you'd like it." "Yes, big boy. Come back and let me finish," Susan said, reaching out her hand. "You'll love it." "Please, Cliff," Amy whispered. "I know what you said, but it's been too long. I want you to be happy. Let us take care of you, please." "Forget it." I was angry and confused. How dare they trick me while I was asleep? I don't think Susan knew how sensitive our sex life was, but Amy sure did. I stormed out of the room and headed downstairs to the kitchen. I splashed water on my face to wake myself up. When I turned around, both women were standing at the doorway watching me. They looked a bit embarrassed as they moved to the kitchen table. They were wearing robes that were loose enough for me to see they had nothing on underneath. "What were you thinking?" I demanded harshly. They shared an uneasy glance. Amy spoke softly. "We just wanted to help you." "Yes, Cliff," said Susan. "Amy told me about your situation. She thought I could help you feel better. I still think I can if you let me." "I don't need any help," I shot back. "And I'm not in a slump." I pointed at my wife. "Everything was fine until she met some guy and cheated on me. She said nothing would change between us, but everything changed. She's been cheating for months, and I'm sick of it." Susan nodded. "She told me that. I don't agree with her actions, but she's an adult and makes her own choices." "Yeah," I snapped, "and look where we are now." "I know she doesn't want to hurt you, Cliff." "Easy for you to say," I retorted. "How do you think it feels knowing my wife isn't satisfied with me? She has to be with some guy half her age. Amy's getting what she wants, but I'm stuck with her. She told me I had to live with it." Amy flinched at my words. Maybe this was the first time Susan heard it. Susan glanced at Amy and then back at me. "I didn't mean any harm, dear. We thought you might like to try being with both of us. I thought you'd enjoy it." "Most men would." "I'm not most men," I yelled. "I'm sick of her cheating. She knows I hate cheaters. Instead of ending her affair, she wants me to cheat too, and when I won't, you both try to force me into it. That's low even for you, Amy." Susan looked guilty, and Amy's eyes dropped to the floor. "I just want to make you happy," my wife whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought you might like to be with both of us. I know you don't want me, but Susan is attractive. She wanted to be with us tonight. I thought it would be fun." "Forget it," I snapped. "What's next? Drugging me so I'm out of my mind? Come on, Cliff. We didn't do anything that bad." "Oh yeah? Why don't you two invite Cody over? I'm sure he'd love to join you. And since you love this so much, maybe I should invite some guys I know. You can have a big party. Wouldn't that be great?" "Stop it, Cliff," Amy said, irritated. "I get it. We made a mistake. No need to be so insulting. So now I'm the crazy one? I'm out of here," I said, leaving the room. "You both make me sick." I thought about going to a hotel, but I wasn't going to let my wife chase me out of my own house. I went to the guest room, locked the door, and moved a dresser in front of it. If they tried to sneak in, at least I'd hear them coming. The next day, I realized I couldn't take it anymore. I loved Amy, but she'd never change. During lunch, I went to my lawyer and told him to start the divorce. When I explained how my wife and her friend tried to ambush me, he suggested a restraining order to get her out of the house. I agreed. 2 days later, Amy was served at her school during lunch. She was served in front of her friends in the teacher's lounge. Then Cody was served for alienation of affection. After that, the server went to the principal's office and served him for letting Amy and Cody carry on their affair during school hours. We didn't have proof for that last charge, but we hoped witnesses would come forward. I was sure some teachers suspected the affair. Time would tell. Either way, Amy and Cody were cheating, and I was paying the price. I got a call at work right after lunch. "Damn you, Cliff!" Amy screamed. "I told you what would happen if we divorced." "It can't be worse than living with a cheater," I replied. "I'm done with you and your boyfriend. You can both go to hell." "I get why you're upset with me," she said. "But did you have to drag Cody into it? This could ruin his career." "Tough luck. He should have thought about that before he started sleeping with you. He deserves everything he gets. By the way, don't bring any of your friends to the house, and stay away too. Read the restraining order. You have to keep away from me. I've changed the locks so you can't come in anymore. You're crazy! It wasn't like that at all, she yelled. Most men would have loved to be with 2 women, but not you. I guess it was too much for you. Susan was right. You are one messed up guy. Hey, by the way, is your friend Susan married? If so, I'd like to let her husband know what she's been up to. Go to hell! Not anymore, I laughed. Come get your stuff from the driveway before it rains and they get ruined. If you want anything else, talk to my lawyer. You better not. She started, but I hung up. Amy came by that night with her friend Heidi to get her clothes. I watched them from the window. She yelled some curses at me and gave me the finger. I just laughed. With her gone from the house, I felt a huge sense of relief. Her wild ways were no longer my problem. Yes, I missed her. After living with her for so long, it was natural. But after dealing with her cheating for months, a lot of the love I had for her was gone. The kids called me a few times. Martha was a bit mad at me. She found out what her mother did and didn't like it. She asked if I could ever forgive her and take her back. I told her I could if Amy had stopped seeing her boyfriend and been a loyal wife. But she didn't, and I couldn't handle it anymore. Robbie was more understanding. He knew his mom had messed up. He didn't blame me for kicking her out, and I appreciated that. I told them both I still loved them and would always be there for them. We still have a good relationship. My case against the school board went nowhere. It turned out Amy was right. She never had intimate moments on school grounds. She and her boyfriend only met at his place or some other spot, but never at school. We couldn't even find anyone who knew about their affair, so they had kept their cheating well hidden. Even though we couldn't prove anything at the school, Cody still lost his job and moved away because of the rumors. Amy was fired too. She was bitter and yelled at me on the phone, blaming me for her job problems. She applied to a school out of town, but they found out about her affair and didn't hire her. Martha told me she's working as a receptionist at a real estate company in the next town over. The divorce took a while. We had to sell our house because neither Amy nor I could afford it alone. I might have been able to, but it was too big for just me. Amy only took a few items when she left. I got a 2-bedroom apartment near my work and put most of our stuff in storage. After the divorce, I didn't date much. I was wary of women, and money was tight with the kids' school bills and Amy's alimony. I couldn't hide much from Amy's lawyer. But once I was on my own, I spent very little, and my finances began to improve. I focused on my work, and now I'm close to getting a promotion. After what happened with Amy, I'm not sure I can handle a long-term relationship. I didn't feel comfortable jumping back into dating. I met a few nice ladies through concerned friends. I don't know how it'll turn out, but even without a steady relationship, I enjoy meeting women and hope to find some companionship. One Friday night, I was out with a woman I met at work. Her name is Stacy, and she's in her late 30s and has been divorced for a few years. She's sweet, fun, and pretty. It was our 3rd date, and we were having dinner at a nice restaurant across town. We were having coffee and dessert when I noticed an older woman at a nearby table. She was very thin, with short blonde hair, dining with a much older man. He looked frail and had very little gray hair. At first, I didn't recognize her. But then I realized it was my ex-wife, Amy. I told Stacy that my ex was nearby. Stacy looked over and seemed shocked. "That woman's your ex-wife?" she said with amusement. "She looks more like your mother than your wife." I explained that she was a few years older than me and that she must be having a rough time since we split up. I was worried about how thin she was, almost too skinny. "Gosh," Stacy laughed. "She looks old enough to be your mother and he looks like her father. I can't believe she was your wife." I tried to appear unaffected, but inside I was worried about Amy. She wore a sleeveless dress, and I noticed her arms were just skin hanging off her bones. The wrinkles on her face seemed much deeper. I didn't tell Stacy, but she looked really unhealthy. I hoped she was taking care of herself. We didn't talk about her anymore. We finished our meal and were about to leave the restaurant. Stacy needed to use the bathroom, so I waited by the entrance. Suddenly, I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Hello, Cliff," said a familiar voice. "Hi, Amy," I replied. I turned around, and there she was. She looked much older. I was going to say she looked well, but I didn't want to lie. Instead, I just said, "Nice to see you. How are you?" "Oh, not too bad." Her blue eyes had lost their sparkle. Her face was thinner, with an unhealthy, pale look that worried me. "I talk to Martha and Robbie sometimes," I told her. "They seem to be doing well in school. I'm glad about that." "Yes, Martha visits once in a while. Robbie, not so much." We just stared at each other for a moment. "Well, Amy, I don't want to keep you from your friend," I said. "He's not really my friend," Amy replied, sounding unsure. "Oh, are you still with Cody?" I asked, trying to be polite. A sad look came over her tired blue eyes. Amy looked down for a moment before she spoke. "No, Cody and I aren't together anymore," she answered in a rough voice. "I haven't seen him since a few months after our divorce." She looked up at me and added softly, "But that's okay. I don't want to see him anyway. I'm sorry to hear that." "Yeah." There was an awkward pause. I wanted to end the chat before Stacy came back. "Well, it was nice to see you again, Amy," I said. "Yes, it is." She held my gaze, and her thin fingers suddenly gripped my arm tightly. "You know, Cliff, I'm really sorry about how things ended between us. You were right, you know." "I was?" "Yeah, about everything. Cody wasn't worth it. I see that now." She spoke with emotion, and her eyes looked wet. "Are you married? I saw your friend. She's really pretty." "No, I'm not married. You know what they say, once bitten, twice shy." I meant it as a joke, but she didn't laugh. She just watched me with sad eyes. "Yeah, I get that. You were always the right one for me. I knew it then, but was too foolish to appreciate it." "Oh, well, I don't know what to say," I replied, feeling awkward. "Listen, Cliff, if you ever want to talk about it..." She handed me a small piece of paper. Her wrinkled face watched for my response. I didn't reject the paper, and for a moment, her blue eyes sparkled like they used to when I loved her. "I really would like to hear from you, Cliff. I know we can never be together again. I know I messed that up. But I hope you're happy now. I know you weren't happy with me. Your friend is really pretty. I just hope she knows how lucky she is to be with you." Without another word, Amy turned and walked back to her table. She said something to the old man sitting there. He glanced over at me with a curious look. "Stacy came out of the restroom around that time?" "You ready to go, Cliff?" "I sure am." We left arm in arm. As we walked out of the restaurant, I threw the piece of paper into the trash. That was the last time I saw Amy. I heard from her kids that she was living with some old guy a couple of towns away, probably the same guy I saw her with at the restaurant. They said she's not doing too well. Her health is bad and she has diabetes. Luckily, the guy has money to support her. Stacy and I never married. But I'm still doing well working as an accountant. I still see my kids as much as I can, but not their mother. I guess I still feel something for her. But after everything she put me through, I can never live with her again, and I want to keep it that way. Before moving on to the second story, please let me know your opinion. Do you like the story long or short, a series or separate parts? The comments section is always welcome, and don't forget to let me know which of these two stories you like better. Story 2. Brad watched the video on his laptop in grim silence. On the screen, a small, older blonde woman entered the room, tightly held by a tall, strong man. She had a playful look, with short, curly hair that Brad recognized. She was smiling. As she touched the man's chest, her face showed excited happiness. The man was tall and much younger. He had short, dark hair, broad shoulders, and a slim waist. Brad guessed the man was a bit taller than him and about the same weight. But when the man took off his shirt, it was clear he had very little fat and well-defined muscles. The pair entered the room with passion. The young man started kissing her deeply. She did not resist when he lifted her blouse, revealing her bra, and touched her boobs. The video had no sound, but her eager face showed she liked it. During the intense moment, the man unclasped her bra and pulled down her skirt. He lifted her off the floor with ease. She laughed happily as her clothes fell, leaving her in dark stockings and small rose-colored panties. Brad recognized the lingerie she wore. She had put on the same set last month on their anniversary. They celebrated their 25th anniversary with a dinner with their family and later went dancing. They then spent the night at a fancy hotel. Both a bit tipsy, they shared a special moment. Brad remembered that night well. His wife had looked lovely when she took off her dress, showing the new lingerie. She smiled and danced playfully, showing off her matching set. The rosy material looked perfect against her pale skin. Now those sweet memories were tainted. Brad felt sick as he forced himself to watch the rest of the video, feeling betrayed. Holding her like a child, the tall man walked across the room and dropped her onto a sofa. Marie quickly sat up and unzipped his pants. She pulled his pants down and held his erect manhood in her hand. The man looked pleased as she started to work on him. Brad was shocked because this kind of act was rare in their 25 years of marriage. Brad enjoyed these moments, but Marie had always been reluctant to perform it. Marie had always been a bit conservative in bed, preferring not to try new things. Brad had hoped for a more exciting sex life, but was content with what they had. She had become more affectionate lately, agreeing to be intimate 3 times a month. From what he had heard from others, this was normal for their age. Brad had believed Marie didn't enjoy this act, but the video showed otherwise. In the video, Marie held the man's balls and enthusiastically performed the act. Her movements were quick, showing skill Brad never knew she had. Brad watched, horrified, as the man pushed deeper. Marie gagged and coughed, but continued. When she tried to pull away, he forced her back down, holding her head in place. Her eyes teared up, and saliva dripped from her mouth. Even though it was rough, Marie didn't resist. She allowed the man to continue, showing skill and willingness that Brad found shocking. Usually, she climaxed at least once when they made love. But this was another level of intensity. Brad was past his prime, not in great shape, and couldn't match this man's energy. The video showed that she was getting something from this man that Brad couldn't give. It made him sad. From how his wife was moving on the sofa, Brad knew it was true. Marie was clutching the man's arms, likely scared of falling. But the guy had a firm grip on her legs and moved her small body easily. Her thin limbs shook, her small breasts bounced, and her body jerked with each thrust. When she shut her eyes and had a long spasm, Brad knew she had climaxed. He wasn't sure how many times, but at least several. He was so focused on the video that he barely heard his phone beep with a text. It was his wife. He paused the video and read the text. Going straight to the store from work. Want anything special for dinner? Brad texted back. Nothing special. See you when you get home. He thought about adding love you at the end, but after watching her betray their marriage, his heart felt cold. She texted back, Okay, see you at home. Love you, baby. Yeah, right, he whispered bitterly. He checked the time and knew she'd be home in about an hour. Marie was 52 years old, working as an administrative assistant at the local community college. She had worked there for a few years after leaving her previous job as a secretary for a small company. She went to work later than Brad and came home later, so he was usually home before her unless he had to work late. Brad Kendallson, 55, was a financial analyst and had been with his firm for 12 years. His job was stressful at times. Some of the firm's clients were wealthy and worried about their money. He devoted all his energy to his clients during work hours. He also had to travel sometimes, which was why he found out about his wife's cheating. A few months ago, he finished a work trip to a nearby city. He usually flew, but decided to drive this time. It took about the same amount of time. On the way home, he decided to stop by the old cabin he and Marie owned to check on it. It was a small, one-bedroom cabin in the hills, about 45 minutes from their house. It had electricity, a working well, a small stove, and a fireplace. Other than that, it was quite basic. Her late father used to own it, and her mother left it to Marie after she died. Since then, they had only stayed there 3 times in 10 years. The last time was 2 years ago for a quiet weekend. Since they almost never used it, Brad was thinking about selling it. He knew they wouldn't get much. The cabin wasn't in great shape, but it sat near a beautiful lake on an acre of land, surrounded by a few other cabins. It didn't have much security, only a chain-link fence across the dirt road leading to the cabins. The land was owned by a retired farmer who built the cabins and sold them to support his retirement. Brad just wanted to quickly check if anyone had been staying in the cabin without permission or if anything was damaged. As he drove up the long dirt road, He wondered who would want such a secluded, basic cabin. Maybe some hunters or an older couple would use it for a weekend escape. They kept a key under a particular rock in the garden, and Brad used that key to get inside. He checked the water and found that the well was still working. When he went to the bathroom, he noticed the shower curtain wasn't completely pushed to the side. This was strange because he remembered pushing it all the way last time they were there. The sink also had faint soap stains around the drain, which he knew he had cleaned before they left. This raised Brad's suspicion. Someone must have been staying there since he and Marie were last there 2 years ago. He looked around and found that nothing was broken or missing, but he was sure someone had moved some chairs around the kitchen table. There were other small changes in the bedroom as well. He checked around outside but didn't see anything unusual. There were faint tire tracks in the dirt driveway, but it was hard to tell how old they were. The other cabins were all empty. Except for the tracks in his driveway, it seemed like no one had visited the area in years. After half an hour of looking around, Brad was puzzled. Maybe there was a simple explanation. Did Marie come here and forget to tell him? That seemed unlikely. He was sure she would have mentioned it. But he had to believe someone had been there. If a squatter had broken in, wouldn't there be a broken window or a forced door? Why was nothing seriously out of place? If troublemakers had stayed, they would have left a mess. Yet, the place looked tidy. The shower curtain was nearly in the right place, just not completely to the side. Whoever was there had tried to keep the cabin looking untouched. It was only because of Brad's attention to detail that he noticed something was off. For some reason, Brad decided not to tell Marie. He wasn't normally suspicious, but something didn't add up. He didn't know why he felt this way. He trusted his wife. They had been together for decades, but it was too strange to rule out the possibility that she knew something and hadn't told him. He didn't want to accuse her without more information. After this strange visit, Brad went to an electronics store and bought some high-definition surveillance cameras. He placed them in hidden spots, one to watch the porch, one in the living room that also viewed the kitchen, and one in the bedroom that could also see into the bathroom if the door was open. Without telling Marie his plan, Brad began driving to the cabin each weekend to check the recordings. It was easy to give his wife a small excuse about his absence. She was often out shopping or visiting friends. She also spent a lot of time at a health spa she joined last year. She had lost almost 15 pounds and toned up. Brad had to admit she looked great for her age. The cameras were motion-activated. The first 2 times he checked, there was nothing recorded. He was starting to think he was wasting his time. But on the 3rd visit, the cameras had data. Curious, he downloaded the videos and watched them at the kitchen table before heading home. His heart sank when he saw his wife, laughing and holding hands with a tall young man, get out of a sports car in front of the cabin. Like many times before, Marie took the key from under the rock and let them in. Brad's fists tightened as he watched them enter the living room. The door had barely closed before they began hugging each other. The man quickly undressed her and himself. They acted like they were alone in the world. Brad could hardly believe his eyes. After they finished, Marie went into the bathroom and took a shower. Brad thought they were done, but the young man indicated he wanted more. So she went back to the bathroom, returned with a towel, and they continued. Brad couldn't believe what he saw. He felt betrayed and hurt. The woman he loved for decades had hidden a secret life from him. This was the first time Brad saw Marie's betrayal. It made him feel sick. He didn't throw up, but he felt disgusted and heartbroken. After sitting there in shock for a bit, he left the cabin making sure everything looked the same so Marie wouldn't know he had been there. He believed this wasn't the first time she had used the cabin for such things, and he feared it wouldn't be the last. Brad checked the cameras were still working and left, heartbroken. Brad felt a deep urge to confront Marie and harm her lover. He even thought about burning down the house and ending his own life. But during the ride home, he calmed down a bit. Just an hour ago, he didn't know she was unfaithful. He loved her deeply and believed she felt the same. They often talked about how awful cheating was, and he thought she agreed with him. Now, everything felt different. He knew he needed more information before acting. His late father always told him not to react without thinking. But this situation was so painful. How could she do this to him? All the way home, Brad searched for some hope for their marriage. Questions filled his mind. Was this the only time she had cheated? The way she acted with that guy made it seem unlikely. Even if it was the first time, should he throw away a 25-year marriage over one mistake? Until seeing the recording, he thought she had been a wonderful wife. He felt both hatred and love for her, and that's why her betrayal hurt so much. One thought troubled him deeply. If he divorced her, how could he ever replace her? He was 55 years old, a bit overweight, not rich or handsome. He wasn't bad-looking for his age, but clearly it wasn't enough to keep her faithful. Marie, on the other hand, still looked good and could attract men. The terrible video proved that. Lots of guys would probably love to be with her. But how about him? At 55, he didn't feel like much of a catch anymore. The chances of finding someone like her seemed very slim. These thoughts filled his head as he arrived home. Thankfully, Marie wasn't there. She left a note saying she was out shopping and would be back for dinner. Brad angrily tore up the note, bitterly thinking she might be with her lover again. That was over a month ago. Since then, he had found 2 more videos of Marie at the cabin with the same man. The latest was of them on the sofa. This wasn't a one-time mistake. All 3 videos showed the same guy. After seeing the first video, Brad somehow controlled his emotions. He forced himself to act normal around Marie. Now that he knew, he paid more attention to her clothes, her activities, and where she went. He made sure to find out as much as possible about her daily life. He decided not to hire a private detective. If things went as he hoped, he didn't want anyone to know he was aware of the affair. Instead, he put a tracking device on Marie's car. When she went on her daily errands, he tracked her on his computer. Other than going to work, her activities were shopping or other normal errands. After a week of watching her, he didn't think the affair was with someone from her job. Brad took a couple of days off work to follow her. She always went straight home except on her workout days. Apart from shopping, she spent most of her time at her health spa. For the past few months, Brad realized his wife had been working out more. Now he knew why. Brad had actually been happy when she said she was joining a workout class at the spa. He encouraged her, and after a few months, he saw improvement in her body. She always had a slim figure and ate well, but she had lost a few pounds and her body looked more toned. He complimented her on her dedication. Now he felt like a fool. He suspected the spa was where she met her lover. The man in the video had a well-built, muscular body, like someone who spent a lot of time at the gym. Brad made it a habit to follow her from work and got there before she arrived. He watched her go in and could even see her working out, thanks to the big windows in the front and the bright lights inside. He stayed in his car, parked at a safe distance, and saw her talking with the staff. It didn't take long to notice how friendly she was with a young guy who had short, dark hair and a strong build. Brad took some photos with his camera. He waited for her to leave and watched as she walked out the front door. The young guy walked with her, and they chatted by her car. It was a friendly talk and seemed normal. They looked comfortable talking, and whatever the guy said made Marie laugh a lot. She placed her hand on his arm while they talked. Before she left, he hugged her and gave her a quick kiss on the cheek. Marie was smiling and looking at him with fondness in her eyes. Brad drove home, locked himself in his office, and looked up the guy on the spa's website. His name was Oscar Pitford, 28, a personal trainer. For the next few days, Brad stayed in his car in front of the spa. He saw Oscar being very friendly with Marie every time she came. He gave her a lot of attention when she worked out and also walked her to her car when she left. It was clear they knew each other well. Oscar seemed to flirt with a lot of women, not just Marie. Even though Marie was older, she was still attractive. She probably enjoyed the attention during her workouts and went along with it. When they got involved, it was likely Marie's idea to use the cabin for their secret meetings. Brad grudgingly recognized his wife's cleverness. Using their house would have been risky with nosy neighbors around. Brad was often home, and there was the chance someone would find out. A motel would leave records. If it was a local motel, someone might see them and tell her husband. The cabin, however, was far away, and Brad never went there. As long as Marie kept it clean, Brad wouldn't know about her secret. It was a perfect place for an affair. If he hadn't checked the cabin after his business trip, he wouldn't have found out about her betrayal. In the weeks after he got the first video, Brad managed to hide his anger. It was hard not to confront her. He only controlled himself by leaving the house when he felt he might lose it. Despite his anger, he didn't reveal his discovery, wanting time to prepare. Watching the latest video of Marie with that guy, Brad was furious. Somehow, he didn't confront her. He hoped she would end the affair herself. But seeing how much she enjoyed being with the guy, it was clear she didn't plan to stop. She seemed to enjoy it more than ever. Even if she ended it, Brad doubted he could stay with her. From the first moment he saw her cheating, he couldn't see a future together. He couldn't understand her disrespect. No matter how many times she might apologize, Brad didn't think he could forgive her. Keeping his knowledge secret allowed him to plan. As a financial expert, he knew how to protect himself in a divorce. He hid a lot of money, making sure she wouldn't get half. He wanted to leave her with nothing but knew that wasn't possible. He thought about ruining her and hurting her lover. But he knew that wasn't realistic. He wasn't a violent person. The police would suspect him right away if anything happened to them. Brad was bitter and very angry, but he wasn't a detective, a secret agent, or a criminal. He was just a regular guy trying to do his best for his family. A normal man stuck with a wife who needed more than he could give. He planned his revenge and then a divorce. Not a happy thought, but what else could he do? He heard a noise and knew she was home. Brad's stomach tightened when he heard her car pull into the garage. He worked hard to hide his anger and act normal. She walked into the kitchen from the garage and Brad was on alert. He used to love it when she came home, knowing she was his partner. Now that feeling was a bitter memory. As usual, she looked great in her tight blue skirt, high heels, and sleeveless blouse. The outfit was professional and suited her job. It was simple but stylish, showing off her arms and legs and her nice figure. He always thought she looked like a stylish librarian with her short, permed hair, attractive body, and pretty smile. "Hi, honey," she said. "How are you?" She walked in carrying a bag of groceries. She set the bag on the table and leaned up to give him a kiss. "Hi, Marie." He accepted her kiss on the cheek. "Are you hungry?" she asked. "Because I'm starving. I bought some steaks." "Why don't you light the grill and I'll make a salad," Marie said. Brad smiled and replied, "Sure, I'll get on it right now." He kept a calm face as he went out to the deck to start the grill. It was harder to act normal after seeing her latest video with another man. He used to love it when she came home so they could eat together and talk about their day. Now, being around her was painful. He didn't even see her as his wife anymore, just someone who hurt him deeply. Still, Brad had to appreciate how well she acted. After doing something so hurtful to him, Marie came home every day with a smile and acted just like the loving wife she used to be. If someone didn't know any better, they'd think nothing had changed. But they were both pretending, and she was much better at it. For Brad, keeping up the act was nearly impossible. Many times over the past few weeks, he almost lost his cool. Somehow, he managed to hold it in. It was strange how Marie could live two different lives. On one hand, she was cheating on him. At home, she was still the caring wife. Brad couldn't see any signs that she was having an affair. She acted as if everything was normal. What confused him more was that Marie was now offering him more intimacy. Before her affair, he almost had to beg her for affection. Now she would cuddle up to him in bed, stroke his back, and whisper sweetly before falling asleep. She even started waking him up in the morning with affection, encouraging him to take care of his needs before work. Brad knew she was just trying to ease her guilt, but after seeing her with another man, he doubted she felt much guilt. He used to think she was always honest. Now he saw her as a very good liar. Brad finished cooking the steaks, and they ate with little conversation. They talked about unimportant things. Mostly, their dinner was silent. Marie seemed a bit unsure. She ate slowly and kept glancing at him, trying to read his thoughts. Brad stayed quiet, not trusting himself to speak. Usually they had coffee and dessert after dinner, but not tonight. When he finished eating, Brad quickly cleaned up and went to the living room to watch TV. Marie followed soon after with a glass of wine and sat next to him on the sofa. Feeling her eyes on him, Brad wished he'd gone to his office instead. Leaving now would look suspicious. "Is everything okay, Brad?" she asked during a commercial. Brad's stomach tightened. She knew something was wrong. He tried not to show his stress. He forced a smile and said, "I'm fine. You seem a little tense today." She rubbed his arm and said softly, "Is something at work bothering you?" If there is, you can tell me. I care about what you do. His voice shook slightly as he replied, No, I'm fine, really. He should have ended the talk there, but he couldn't help himself. Why do you ask? He said, still looking at the TV. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. She snuggled closer, rubbing his arm gently. Maybe we need some time together. We haven't been close in a while. Brad choked out. Really? Yeah. She giggled and said, I miss you, honey. I'm starting to wonder if you're still attracted to me, Brad. She said it like a joke and laughed, but after so many years together, they both knew it wasn't funny. She looked worried when his laugh sounded forced. You know I am, he said. They laughed nervously, but it didn't feel genuine. She turned her attention back to the TV and they sat in silence. Before her affair, Brad often hinted he wanted intimacy, but she usually said no. He didn't think much of it. When she did want to be close, he never refused her, not once. Her hints were subtle but clear, and he was quick to respond. It used to be easy. Now, knowing she was seeing other men, he felt differently. He used to be eager to be close to her. Now, he held back. Since she rarely initiated, the lack of intimacy wasn't too noticeable before. But after weeks without any closeness, even Marie was starting to realize their relationship had changed. They were more like roommates now, not like a couple. Brad feared he couldn't hold out much longer. They hadn't been intimate in weeks, and knowing what she was doing behind his back made him both angry and desperate. She was very affectionate with her lover, but never with him. In the past, it took her a long time to get in the mood, but when she did, he couldn't resist her. Now that she had a new, attractive look and a lot of new experiences, she could be very appealing. Thank goodness his plans were almost done. Despite her hints tonight, Brad was determined to wait. He wasn't going to compete with her new lover. Any time together would leave her unhappy, he was sure of it. After watching her wild reaction to the other man, he knew she never acted like that with him. For the past month, he forced himself not to respond to her. When she made a suggestive comment, he pretended not to hear it. In bed, he kept his distance and pretended to sleep. Brad knew he couldn't keep ignoring her forever. They used to enjoy a decent, although infrequent, intimate life. But after seeing her excitement in the video, he felt he could never satisfy her. She might pretend to enjoy it, but it would all be a lie. He didn't want to try to give her what she wanted, knowing he couldn't. She never reacted with him as she did with her new lover, and he knew she never would. Marie sighed next to him and said, I thought maybe you'd want to go to bed a little early tonight. Are you tired? No, silly. She giggled and playfully slapped his arm. I mean, do you want to go to bed now and maybe, you know? Yeah, he knew. Brad felt himself start to sweat. His body was reacting and he could feel his face getting hot. He knew she was watching him, surprised that he wasn't acting normally. Maybe in a bit, he finally said. Go on up, honey. I want to watch this show a bit longer. She snorted with disappointment. He could feel her warmth against him. The smell of her hair and her perfume were intoxicating. He remembered how wonderful she was in bed. He tried to ignore his longing and didn't look at her face to avoid seeing her confused look. He wished he could turn off his desire for her, but after loving her for so long, it was impossible. She turned back to the TV, puzzled by his reluctance. Her pride was hurt by his rejection. Brad thought to himself, let her feel rejected for once. The show wasn't over when Marie yawned. She stretched, making her shirt pull tight against her chest. It was a move meant to catch his eye, but tonight he kept staring at the TV. When he didn't react, Marie sighed. Oh, well, I'm a little tired, honey. I guess I'm going to bed now. Do you want to come up? It was an obvious offer he hadn't heard in years. I'll be up soon, he replied, pretending not to care. Oh, okay, just wake me when you come up, she said. I probably won't be asleep right away. All right, see you soon. She gave him a long look, kissed his cheek, got up, and went to the bedroom. Brad breathed a sigh of relief. He stayed in the living room for 3 more hours. It was after 1 o'clock when he tiptoed to the bedroom, peeked in to make sure she was asleep before getting undressed and joining her in bed. Sleep was hard, and he woke up early, still feeling tired. She was still sleeping when he got up, took his clothes, and went to the guest room to dress so he wouldn't wake her. He was frustrated, but held on to his pride. He wasn't going to be with her while she was cheating. He missed the old days when he could just be close to his wife, start things, and make love without any worries. But she started this mess, and he wasn't going to act like everything was fine. If she wanted to be with someone, she could go to her lover. She chose this path, and it wasn't his job to make her happy anymore. The atmosphere at home grew tense. Marie was confused and wondered if something was wrong because they barely spoke. He talked to her sometimes, usually at dinner, but there was little affection, and he never touched her first anymore. If she hugged him, he would stiffen up. Other times he would pull back if she touched him. Something was bothering him, but he wouldn't say what. She tried to talk to him about it, but he just changed the subject. She used to feel his love through his actions and kind words. Now she felt they had lost an important connection. She never found him this hard to talk to. The next night, Marie tried again to get close to him. As before, he acted indifferent. She wondered if he knew about her affair, but quickly dismissed it. She and Oscar had been very discreet. Only the people at her spa knew she even knew him. During workouts, they acted friendly but proper. Any physical contact happened away from the spa. Any special moments with her lover were kept at her father's old cabin. Marie was worried about Brad's behavior, but not too much. She still loved him and wanted to help if he had a problem. Whatever was wrong, she never thought it would threaten their marriage. It must be a work problem, she thought. She was disappointed they hadn't been close in so long. She had to believe he was feeling it too, but that wasn't her fault. She offered herself more in the last month than she had in years. Marie wasn't feeling neglected. She had great times with Oscar. Still, she didn't want Brad to feel left out and wondered why he seemed distant. Did he not find her attractive anymore? That didn't make sense. She was in the best shape of her life. Brad was getting older, though. Maybe he was losing interest in intimacy. Ironically, as Brad's desire slowed down, Marie's seemed to grow stronger. Young guys were noticing her everywhere, especially at work. She spent her days with college students and got a lot of attention. Many of them flirted with her, but she kept it professional and didn't lead anyone on. Even though she found excitement with Oscar, she wanted Brad to be happy too. Their marriage had never been very passionate, so Brad's distance didn't worry her much. She continued to be a loving wife and saved her romantic desires for Oscar. Marie knew her affair with Oscar wouldn't last forever, but for now, it was very intense. Whenever she could, she met Oscar at a secret cabin for a few hours of excitement. She always made sure to clean up before heading back to her normal life with Brad, who had no idea about her secret. They avoided the bed at the cabin just in case Brad ever visited and found evidence. Instead, they used places that were easier to clean. Despite Brad's odd behavior, Marie was not ready to end her affair. As the next week went by, Brad's apathetic attitude bothered Marie. She wondered if he suspected something and decided to take a break from Oscar. When she told Oscar, he was disappointed but agreed. By the second week of their break, Marie couldn't stop thinking about being with Oscar. She daydreamed about their cabin and felt frustrated, sometimes even sneaking off to the bathroom to relieve some tension. Her fingers were no match for the real thing, though. She didn't want to get involved with any other guy, but being around young, attractive men at work made her feelings harder to control. She began to fantasize about them. Before the affair, Marie rarely noticed the men she worked with. Since starting the affair, she couldn't imagine going without that kind of excitement. When her desire became too strong, she decided to end her break with Oscar. During her workout, she let Oscar know she wanted to resume their affair. They kept things professional in public, but made plans for next week. Brad had a business meeting scheduled, giving Marie time to meet Oscar. Marie went home feeling happy. Her mood improved as she spent the evening with Brad. Dinner was quiet, and Brad seemed more serious than usual, but she didn't let it bother her. He had been distant for a while now, but the thought of seeing Oscar lifted her spirits. She tried to keep things friendly between them. Marie remained upbeat at work on Friday. Her supervisor noticed her good mood and asked about it. "Oh, nothing special," Marie said with a smile. "Just feeling good about life right now." "Did Brad get a promotion or something? Maybe you won the lottery," her supervisor joked. "I haven't seen you this happy in a long time." "Nothing like that," Marie replied slyly. "I'm just appreciating what I have. Things aren't perfect, but they could be worse." "That's a great attitude to have, Marie," her supervisor said. Marie went home after work, feeling fantastic. She couldn't wait to see Oscar in a few days. She was so excited she wanted to take a shower as soon as she got home to calm down a bit. When she walked into the kitchen, she smelled something delicious. Brad had made dinner. She gave him a hug and was pleasantly surprised when he hugged her back and kissed her cheek. "This is wonderful, Brad," she said happily. "Would you like some wine with dinner, honey?" Brad asked. "Yes," Marie replied. "I'll have a glass," she said with a smile. "But I don't want to get too sleepy. I have a surprise for you later for making such a yummy meal." "Your smile is enough for me, darling," Brad replied, grinning. "Oh, no," she giggled. "Tonight I have something much better planned. It's been a while since we had time together, and I want to show you how much I love you." Brad smiled, hiding his thoughts, and said, "I think you're wonderful, too." They ate and talked normally, which was a nice change. Marie was happy to see Brad acting more open and relaxed. The dinner and friendly chat were a welcome break from the serious moods they had been having. After dinner, they cleaned up together. Then, as usual, they went to the living room to watch TV. But tonight, Marie was determined to get close to her husband. It had been weeks without any closeness, and she missed it. Even though Brad was getting older, he was still a good-looking and healthy man. She knew his needs were not being met. Despite having a lover on the side, she still wanted to make her husband happy tonight. Thank goodness he's in a good mood for a change. She touched Brad's arm and excused herself during a commercial break. She went to the bedroom and changed into more revealing clothes. She knew he liked seeing her in skimpy outfits. She picked a thin tank top and tight shorts from the dresser. The tank top left her arms and shoulders bare, and the shorts hugged her hips. Feeling mischievous, she took off her bra and left it off. She decided not to wear the shorts. With just the tiny top and thin panties, she hoped even her distracted husband would notice. She looked in the mirror and smiled, feeling confident. Even at her age, she thought she looked great. Her legs were bare, and the thin panties showed just a bit of what was underneath. She was sure Brad would find her attractive tonight. She couldn't wait to join him on the sofa, so she walked back to the living room. But Brad was in the kitchen, so she sat on the sofa, pulled her legs under her, and waited. He came in with a beer for himself and another glass of wine for her. She gave him a flirtatious smile and patted the seat next to her. His eyebrows went up when he saw her outfit. She could feel excitement as he sat down next to her. "I filled your glass," he said, handing her the wine. "I hope you wanted more." "Yes, I'm in the mood for some," she said, giving him a hint. "I'm in the mood for something else too, darling." "I can see," he said with a chuckle. She knew she looked appealing and felt herself getting more excited. She hadn't felt this eager for him in months. But she didn't want to seem too desperate. She wanted Brad to make the first move, so she waited, hoping he would get the hint. But he just stared at the TV. After a while, she moved closer. The TV droned on as she sipped her wine and tried to press against him. She laid her head on his shoulder and rubbed his arm, trying to show she was ready. But he didn't look at her. During the next show, she started feeling tired. Frustrated with her unresponsive husband, she tried to stay alert but couldn't fight off her weariness. What she didn't know was that Brad had put a sleeping pill in her wine. Soon, she was struggling to keep her eyes open and eventually dozed off. When she woke up, it was dark. There was a blanket over her, the TV was off, and Brad was gone. "What the heck?" she mumbled sleepily. The clock showed it was 4 in the morning. Still half asleep, she stumbled to the bedroom. Brad was in bed, sound asleep. "Darn him," she cursed softly. "What's wrong with him?" Without changing into her nightgown, Marie crawled into bed next to him and quickly fell asleep. The next day, she was annoyed. She had given him every chance to be close, and he had ignored her. His loss, she thought angrily. When she woke up, it was nearly noon. The sun was shining, and Brad was in the kitchen. "Morning, honey," he said as she entered. "Want some coffee?" "Yeah, sure," she replied flatly. "What happened last night?" "You fell asleep," he said with a smile. "I guess you were tired from a hard week. You looked so peaceful. I didn't want to wake you." "You should have woken me." "I know, but, well, you know," he replied vaguely. "By the way, Marie, why don't we go away for the weekend?" "Go away?" "Yeah, let's go to the cabin for a couple of days," he suggested with a grin. "We've both been so busy lately that we haven't had much time together." Marie was still sleepy and a bit confused. She took a sip of her coffee, trying to wake up before answering. "The cabin? We haven't been there in years." "I know. But we need some time together. It's so quiet there, and we can really catch up and have some fun. Fun? Marie's mind cleared and her eyes widened. Was he hinting about something else? After being ignored last night, she didn't expect this. Fun, huh? Yeah, Brad chuckled. I know I'm not that romantic, but maybe if we get away from our routine, something will click. It's just for the weekend since we both have work on Monday. But it could be fun. How about it? She shrugged. I guess so. We need to go to the store and get some things. I already got everything we need. I went shopping yesterday. Well, aren't you the Boy Scout, always prepared? She giggled. Yeah, have to be prepared. He laughed back. Let's just clean up, dress, and head out now. Start our weekend right away. Marie felt more excited the more she thought about it. Why not? A weekend in the woods with her husband might help their relationship. The way he was talking, she thought, was a good sign. Okay, let me get changed and pack a bag. Great, Brad said, grinning. I already packed my stuff. I'll put it in the car and we can leave soon. On the way to the cabin, Marie tried to use her cell phone to send a text but found it wasn't working. Oh no, she said, pressing buttons on the phone. I thought it was charged, but I guess the battery is dead. That's okay, sweetheart. You can use mine if you want. No, that's okay. It's not important. I'll just wait until we get to the cabin and charge it. Okay. An hour and a half later, they were at the cabin, putting food in the fridge and making sandwiches. Marie was happy, but a little nervous. As she entered the small cabin, her eyes scanned the place for any signs of her past actions. But as she and Brad settled in, nothing seemed out of place, and he didn't notice anything either. They finished eating and took a walk around the lake. They talked, laughed, and enjoyed the beautiful surroundings. Brad held her hand as they walked, pointing out things he wanted her to see. He even hugged her a couple of times and caught her when she tripped. He was friendlier than he'd been in months, and Marie was thrilled. It was so nice she almost felt guilty about her recent choices. The afternoon was wonderful, and the evening even better. Marie hadn't felt this close to her husband in a long time. Once they were back in the cabin, she took a chance and kissed him. He didn't resist her affection. When it grew dark, Brad put on some music, and they opened a bottle of wine. As they drank, he told funny stories from their past years together. Marie felt pleasantly tipsy and tried to cuddle closer to him. When he accepted and wrapped his arms around her, she was hopeful for a special night. The romantic mood continued as they went to bed. Instead of lying apart like they did at home, tonight they lay side by side, gently kissing and touching each other. Marie was very excited about finally being close to her husband. It had been so long since they had shared such moments. He touched her softly, lovingly. She felt a deep warmth and closeness that she had missed. She tried to focus on Brad, but found herself comparing this gentle affection with the more intense experiences she'd had with someone else. Both had their own excitement, but this moment with Brad felt truly fulfilling. She wasn't sure what time it was when she heard a noise outside. It must have been close to 10 o'clock, which was early for them to go to bed. But out here, with no TV to watch, going to bed early seemed normal. A moment later, there was another noise. Her ears perked up, and she felt Brad tense up and sit up. What was that? He whispered with concern. Is someone outside? I don't know, she whispered back. There was another noise. It sounded like someone was on the porch. Marie sat next to her husband with wide eyes watching the door. She was suddenly afraid. What are we going to do? She whispered. Brad pushed the covers back and got out of bed quietly. You stay here, he told her firmly. I'll go check it out. Marie gasped when the doorknob started to rattle. She was terrified as Brad moved to his bag and took out something. Before she could see what it was, she heard the front door swing open. She saw a dark shadow at the door and realized it must be a break-in. She screamed in panic. A bright flash and a loud bang followed, then another bang. Marie realized her husband had shot the intruder. From the bedroom, she heard the man collapse, grabbing at his neck where he had been hit. She screamed again, unable to believe what was happening. The room fell silent as she cried. "Oh my God!" she cried, her hands over her face. Brad moved carefully toward the fallen man. He aimed the gun at him as he walked closer. He touched the man's neck to check for a pulse to see if he was dead. Then, He moved to the open door and stepped outside to make sure no one else was there. He came back in, went to the light switch, and turned it on. At that moment, Marie's life changed forever. Her brain felt foggy, her eyes widened in shock, and her heart nearly stopped. The dead man on the floor was Oscar. She was sobbing and hardly making sense when Brad came to her side. He held her head to his chest to comfort her and whispered softly, "It's all over now, honey. Don't worry, we're safe, Marie." Her thoughts were a mess. Her husband held her close, whispering to calm her. "We have to call the police," he finally said after a few minutes. "They will want to investigate this as a crime scene. Just stay here." Marie collapsed on the bed, crying uncontrollably. Brad watched his sobbing wife, waiting patiently until she went to the bathroom to throw up. She was still in the bathroom when he got her cell phone, opened it up, and removed a piece of tape from the battery contacts. Then, he put it back in her purse. He went to the body and took an envelope from the dead man's jacket. Inside the envelope was a note. It was a note Brad had printed at a library in a nearby town and placed on Pitford's car earlier in the morning. With a bitter look, he read, "This coupon is good for tonight only. Bring it with you and redeem it for a night you'll never forget. See you at the cabin. Signed, your friend Marie." He crumpled the note and went outside. Her lover's car was in the driveway. The cabin was in a dead zone, so it was hard to get a good signal for cell phone use. He called to his wife, "Be right back, Marie. I'm trying to call the cops, but I'm having trouble getting a signal. Let me go out back and see if I can get through." He moved quickly to the lake. He found a hidden spot and lit the note and envelope on fire with a lighter. He watched the paper turn to ashes, making sure nothing was left. Then, he rubbed the black ashes between two rocks and covered them with leaves, leaving no trace of his setup. He took a moment to calm down. He had never killed anyone before. He knew it would happen when he placed the note on Pitford's car this morning. But the act of killing was emotional. He regretted doing it this way, but with the rage he'd felt for so long, he knew it was bound to happen. His hands were still shaking as he called 911. He needed to keep calm and let things play out. He had already removed all the surveillance cameras and hidden the videos where no one would find them. It was lucky he kept knowledge of her affair to himself. Once the cops started questioning his wife, it would all come out. Even if she didn't confess, it wouldn't be long before the cops found out she knew the intruder from the health spa where he worked. The police arrived in less than an hour. Brad was waiting for them and admitted he was the one who shot the man. They took his gun and placed it in a plastic bag as evidence. When they asked, he assured them he hadn't moved or touched the body since the shots were fired. His wife said the same. The cops were immediately suspicious when they found out the intruder used the hidden key to open the door. How did he know it was there? Brad explained about the key but acted like he didn't know. But when they questioned Marie about it, she broke down almost immediately. She admitted she and Pitford had been there before. Brad pretended to be shocked and must have acted well because the cops began looking at him with pity. They were both taken to the station for questioning. The forensic team showed up not long afterward and went over the cabin inch by inch. At the station, Brad called a lawyer he used sometimes. At the lawyer's instruction, he told the police he wouldn't say anything more until the lawyer arrived. Marie, on the other hand, couldn't keep silent. She was so upset over her lover's death and confused about how it had happened, she lost all control. The cops used that to their advantage and got her to admit to the details of her affair. Brad didn't mind her talking. She had no idea about his plan and couldn't say anything that would get him in trouble. After a long night and part of the next day, both husband and wife were let go. They were told not to leave town. After weeks of questions and investigations, nothing was found about the shooting that could put Brad in jail. Brad knew they were still suspicious. But without evidence, they had to call the shooting an act of self-defense. Breaking into someone's home at night is a crime. Any jury would see it as self-defense. Even if there were some questions, the jury would likely side with the homeowner. Brad took his wife home on Sunday. She was a wreck and kept saying sorry for cheating until he told her to stop. He already knew everything and tried to look confused as she gave all the sad details. He felt bad for ending the young man's life, but he saw no other way to get rid of the guy and regain his pride. He went to work on Monday, leaving his wife to deal with her own feelings. She was a mess when he got home. A neighbor was there to keep her from losing her mind. That evening, after a quick dinner, he talked to her about the affair. She cried the whole time and went through all the usual excuses. It was just a fling, not real love. She loved him. She would make it up to him, please forgive me, and so on. Her excuses didn't mean much to him. He had her served with divorce papers on Thursday at home. She still hadn't gone back to work and almost broke down when she got the papers. Brad guessed losing both her husband and lover in 1 week was too much. She was so upset he took her to the hospital when he couldn't calm her down. Brad packed a suitcase while Marie cried and begged him to stay and forgive her. "What am I going to do now?" she sobbed. With little sympathy, he said, "I have no idea. We're getting a divorce, Marie. You're not my problem anymore. But I love you. I can't live without you, Brad." When she kept pleading, Brad finally said harshly, "Just go find another friend, Marie. You seem to have no trouble doing that. Just make sure it's someone like the guy you were seeing." That cold reply left her sobbing uncontrollably. He left the home that weekend and never returned. Brad was never charged with a crime, but the authorities kept an eye on him and talked to people he knew. With suspicion still around him, his career suffered. No one wanted their money handled by someone who might be a criminal. He eventually quit his job but found another one soon after and was paying his bills. They sold the house and the cabin. He and Marie split the money. He had his half of the marital assets and some hidden funds to support himself. But with her lawyer looking into their finances, he had to live more modestly and watch out for anything that could get him in trouble. After the shooting and the divorce, Brad's life moved on. He bought some weights and started working out at home. Soon his muscles toned up and he lost weight. He kept in touch with his daughter and visited her when he could. She was very upset about the divorce and wanted him to reconsider. Brad told her gently but firmly that it would never happen. After being cheated on for so long, there was no chance they would reconcile. Despite worrying about his looks, Brad did find women to date. They were older, but so was he. Some were quite attractive and nice to be around. It took him a few months to ask one out, but it felt good to meet people, socialize, and enjoy female company again. He did not want another long-term relationship yet, but he had a career and many good years ahead. Even at 55, he could still attract women. After the divorce, he wasn't as lonely as he thought he'd be. Marie, on the other hand, struggled with depression for a long time after what happened. Her carefree attitude about love and life was gone. The husband she still loved had divorced her, and her young lover was dead. She couldn't control her emotions enough to find another partner. Her active romantic life vanished and wasn't coming back. She saw a therapist and took medication that helped her cope. Her health took a hit, so their daughter made sure she was under a doctor's care. She stopped working out and gained a lot of weight. She mostly stayed inside and never went back to the spa where all the trouble began. Brad heard from friends that she was moving out of state to escape the harsh gossip about her affair. Hey, audience! If you liked this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.